old foes return. Thunder and lightning echoed around the skull cavern as Jinxer placed the canisters of spiritual energy on several stone pedestals around a large blood-red crystal situated in the center of a large chamber in the lower levels of their base of operations. The canisters are in place, my prince. Now to begin the revival ritual. The bug demon told Olympius, who stood nearby and watched. Then stop wasting time and revive them at once, Jinxer. Olympius ordered. At once, my prince. Jinxer replied and opened his spellbook. Darkness far and wide, converge together and revive these fallen warriors. He began as dark energy gathered and entered the crystal. Warriors of evil, we call upon you. Return to the land of the living and seek your revenge. Rise up from the darkness and bring new life. Arise and live again. He chanted as more and more dark energy flew into the crystal, while the canisters glowed brightly before they finally shattered. And the energy took physical form. The first to emerge in physical form was a golden armored flying monkey-like creature, followed by a skeletal figure with red eyes and a mix of military camouflage on his bones. Both of them wielded swords. The third figure to emerge was a black monster with green lines all around him and red eyes. Following the black and green monster was a monster with 6 horns, yellow eyes, sharp teeth, long fingernails, a red and gray face, and wore an orange-like outfit. Next was a creature with a blue and yellow head and wearing red armor, followed by a blue and white manta ray-like monster with a cape that resembled a manta ray's wings. Next was a yellow, black, and red alien that almost appeared to be robotic with a silver neck and metal arm guard blasters. Then a one that resembled a pirate, followed by a knight-themed creature with a large, spiked mace. Also emerging from the energy was a red, rock-based monster with horns and a humanoid creature with icicles on his head that was like his hair, made up completely of ice, and then a human female wearing purple and black clothing. 5 more figures emerged, these ones being Automon, Jarok, Steelin, Tesla, and General Venjix, warriors of the Machine Empire who met their end at the combined strength of 10 Red Rangers. Finally, the last 2 figures emerged from the energy, one taking the form of a rather ugly-looking monster, and the other a human female wearing scorpion-themed armor. My prince, allow me to introduce you to Goldar, Rito Revolto, Ecliptor, Darkonda, Trecherin, Villamax, Deviate, Loyax, Molter, Florius, Maratrix, Scorpina, Automon, Jarok, Steelin, Tesla, General Venjix, and Jinxer began, but some found himself blanking on the name of the last fallen warrior that was summoned. The name's Elgar. Now can I get a bite to eat around here? I'm really starving. The ugly monster asked in a dim-witted tone, spotting a battling nearby. Hey, you, can I get a turkey on rye, extra peanut butter and marshmallows? The battling nodded and left the chamber. Thanks, you're the best. I don't seem to remember gathering your energy. Jinxer admitted. Who cares? I've fought the Rangers more times than some monsters. Plus, I am the one who discovered the power chamber and helped to blow it up. Elgar pointed out. Gah, where are we? Goldar demanded. And why does it smell around here? Rito took a whiff of his bony armpits and recoiled. Oh, that'd be me. Guess being in the ground for so many years doesn't make you smell like fresh daisies. He answered. Ah, I like smelling like this. You shouldn't be here, traitor, Ecliptor shouted, his sword ready to run Darkonda through. You destroyed Dark Spectre. Oh, like you wouldn't have done the same thing? Darkonda shot back, raising his own sword. All of you, stop this bickering at once, Olympius ordered. The former fallen monsters turned to face Olympius with a glare. I am Olympius, son of Queen Banshira, and I have brought you back to the world of the living to serve me. Why should we serve you? Deviate questioned. Because only together we can destroy the Power Rangers. Olympius answered, causing any form of arguing to end. Alone, we could not hope to defeat the Rangers, but by uniting as a single force, We can destroy the Power Rangers once and for all. Thrax suggested the same thing, and he ended up getting destroyed by the Sentinel Knight. What makes you think you can accomplish this task? Molter asked. I agree with my brother. Florius agreed. But at the same time, I feel that we should listen to what the prince has to say. His plan feels like it would be extremely different than the one purposed by Thrax. I can assure you, my plan is much more different than the one Thrax had. Rather than destroying the source of their power, we take the powers of the most powerful humans on the planet and use them to power up our monsters, Olympius said. What powers? Rito asked, scratching his bony head. Humans these days have a power called a quirk. These quirks vary from each individual, but with the right quirk given to the right monster, they will be unstoppable, and the Rangers won't stand a chance. Jinxer explained. For instance, a power-type quirk infused with a monster who prefers his fists can demolish a building in one punch. Elemental quirks can give those who wield fire or ice more power, and those who can regenerate will be invincible. Heh, sounds like those comic books I used to read, before Aunt Divitox burned them all, Elgar said. Though, I'm guessing that even kids have them as well. 80% of the population on Earth has quirks. Those who have a promising quirk will be of interest to us, and if a child has a quirk, then we will simply take it from them. Olympius answered with evil intent. No, came the roar of Villamax who stood by Loyax. You would target innocent children because of their quirks. What does it matter? Deviate shrugged. That is the work of a villain. There is no honor, Villamax shouted, turning towards Deviate. And it's because of you that Scorpius was destroyed by the Red Ranger. You manipulated both sides, just so you could use the power of the cocoon for yourself. I refuse to work with any of you. I refuse as well. I was a mighty warrior who fought against evil for years before I lost my way. It was only because of the Yellow Ranger that I remembered who I truly was. I will not work with those who target children. We are not your pawns, Loyax shouted, raising his mace. You would dare defy me? The one who went through all the trouble of reviving you both? Olympius asked, raising his staff at the two warriors, then fired a blast of energy from his staff at the ground in front of them. You will do as I command or face the consequences. Then you'll just have to destroy us both, Villamax taunted, vanishing in a trail of energy with Loyax before anyone could stop them. Oh, I was afraid of this. I should have known the two of them would remember their honor and refuse to serve you. I apologize, my prince, Jinxer said with a bow. Would you allow us to hunt them down and destroy them? Venjix offered. It doesn't matter. If they defy us, they will be destroyed. But on to another matter. What about those 5? Olympius asked. It will take a great deal of time to revive them, but I can assure you that they will be loyal to you and our allies alone, Jinxer assured. Perfect. Nothing can stop us from destroying the Rangers. They will feel our revenge and be destroyed, Olympius said with a laugh, which echoed around the skull cavern. Down on Earth, the energy trails of Loyax and Villamax took physical form in a forested area far from the city in the dead of night. Trachina lost her way long ago, and I will never work for someone like her or Olympius ever again. I am a warrior with honor, and I know what I must do. The Rangers must know what Olympius is planning, Villamax vowed. I agree. But how do we find them? We're nowhere near the city, and it would take us days to reach it by foot, Loyax added. Perhaps I can be of some assistance, came the voice of Diabolico as he walked out from behind a tree and towards the two. I am Diabolico, and I can take you to where the Rangers are. The following afternoon, back at UA, the students of Class 1A were sitting at their desks in their homeroom to begin their first Hero Basic training class, eager to see what they could do. It was at that very moment the door opened, and entering the classroom was the #1 hero in the world. I am here, Coming through the door like a hero came the voice of All Might, wearing a different costume. I can't believe it's really All Might, Kaminari gasped. So, he is a teacher. This year is going to be totally awesome, said an eager Kirishima. Hey, look. Is he wearing his Silver Age costume? Taisu asked as All Might stepped up in front of the class. I'm getting goosebumps. It's so retro, Ojiro said in awe. Welcome to the most important class at UA High, mostly referred as Heroing 101. Here you will learn the basics of being a pro, and what it means to fight in the name of good, All Might stated, with the students looking interested, except for Connor who was struggling to stay awake. Let's get into it. Today's lesson will pull no punches. That's right. It's combat training. But one of the keys of being a hero is looking good. From out of the wall, 20 suitcases slid out from hidden spots, each marked 1 to 20. These were designed for you based on your quirk registration forms and the requests you sent in before school started. Get yourselves suited up and meet me at Training Ground Beta. All Might instructed the students, before he finally noticed Connor's lack of focus, while the rest of the students went to change into their costumes. Young Grayson, I know you don't have a costume considering what you do to prepare for battle, but that's no excuse for being tired. Connor stretched his hands and yawned before getting up from his desk. Sorry about that, All Might. It's just that, well, I didn't get enough sleep last night. Something caused me to wake up. Connor admitted. Don't tell me you felt a disturbance in the forest, young man, All Might joked. Actually, more like I had a dream. I don't know what it was, but I saw these things fighting alongside the batlings in some place I didn't recognize. Connor explained with a laugh, slapping his face with both hands. It was kind of hard to fall back asleep, but I'm wide awake now. Good to hear, because you and the other rangers have a special combat training course today. I'll explain more later. For now, head on over the ground beta, and don't forget your jacket. All Might told the Red Ranger, dashing out of the classroom as quickly as he arrived. Later, All Might stood waiting in front of the entrance to ground beta, which resembled a city as the 25 students exited the entrance in their hero costume. They say that clothes make the pros, young ladies and gentlemen, and behold, you are the proof. Take this to heart. From now on you are all heroes in training. All Might said as the students and rangers stood before them. This is getting me all revved up. You look so cool. Now, shall we get started, you bunch of newbies? I got to say, these are some pretty impressive costumes, Melissa said as she and the other rangers walked out, wearing their jackets over casual clothing. Connor agreed with her sister as he looked at the costumes of these heroes in training. Yayurazu's costume consisted of a high-collared, sleeveless crimson leotard with silver lines at the waist and around the arms, exposing a lot of skin which some students would find alluring. She also sported calf-length red boots with heels and 2 gold utility belts, one of which was thinner around her chest. Gyro's costume consisted of a black leather jacket, a long salmon-colored shirt with several rips at the collar and hem, black pants, boots with stereos built into their shafts, white fingerless gloves, a plain black choker, and red paint marks just below her eyes. Definitely screams punk rocker, the rangers thought at once. Next was Shoto, whose costume consisted of a plain off-white shirt with matching colored straps over his shoulders, an ice-like material covering the left side of his face, which appeared to be detachable. Ida's costume consisted of black one-piece suit with a high collar, over which was various pieces of silver armor, chest plate included, a metal collar around his neck and one around his upper arm, metal vambraces on both arms that extended past his elbows, a helmet that covered his entire face, full of holes with 2 curved horns just behind a single spike sticking out of the back, knee-high boots with gold accessories, specialized for his quirk with 3 thick metal pipes around his torso attached with a blue band. From a glance, Lena noticed the armor was lighter than the armor worn by the Silver Guardians. Tsuyu's costume gave her a frog-like appearance with a bright green turtleneck bodysuit, tan-colored gloves with large buckles on each wrist guard, two matching belts with green dots embedded into the one around her waist. Two black lines ran all the way down her suit, each framed yellow. On her feet were a pair of tight black boots with markings shaped in a V, green webbed flippers resembling frogs' toes, while a headband that matched the color of her gloves and googles with dark, green-tinted lenses attached on either side. Sato wore a yellow full-body suit that covered his entire body. With the exception of the holes for his mouth, eyes, and hair, white gloves and boots, and a utility belt around his waist that held small quantities of sugar in the pouches. Zero's costume consisted of a black, skin-tight bodysuit with a turtleneck, which was plain apart from the white design on the mid-torso area and the two yellow trimmings around each of the elbow-length sleeves. On his feet were white boots lined with yellow with short white bands around his waist and sides of his thighs, with a larger one across his chest that connected to his shoulder pads, which were shaped like tape dispensers. Completing his costume was a yellow helmet, shaped just like his shoulder pads, while a sizable black visor obscured his face. For Kaminari, he wore a plain white shirt, over which he wore an open black jacket with a white lighting pattern across his back, and matching pants with two lines running down his legs, while a single square-shaped earphone was over his right ear, which resembled a radio antenna. That guy's going to shock himself, the Rangers all thought. Takoyami wore a black robe with a tint of dark purple that covered his entire body, stopping halfway down his shins. Underneath the robe was a dark t-shirt, wristbands, and a pair of baggy pants, followed by a pair of knee-high black boots and a double-pin buckle utility belt. Turning to Bakugo, the explosive boy's costume was composed of a tight, black, sleeveless tank top, with an orange X across the middle, forming a V-neck. Dots were along the left line of the collar, indicating the support company that designed his costume. A metallic neck brace worn with rectangular ends with 3 holes on each side were also a part of his costume. But the big indication of his costume was the massive grenade-like gauntlets that resembled the Mk2 frag grenade from the 20th century that his sleeves reached. Several more grenades were on his belt that held up his baggy pants and knee guards, below which he sported black, knee-high combat boots with orange soles and eyelets. Finally, a jagged and black mask went around his eyes with large, orange-rimmed flare-shaped protrudes from each side. Wow, you weren't kidding. Bakugo really has a thing for explosions, Lena said to Connor. Trust me, you have no idea. Connor deadpanned, remembering several times when Bakugo used his quirk and left him covered in soot. Kind of looks like he's preparing for war. Ojiro's costume was karate-themed, with a plain karate gi tied with a black belt, the collar of which was lined with fur and black boots with sand blue details. Still, at least Ojiro's is simple and combat functional, Anthony pointed out. The sparkle from Ayama's costume caught the eyes of the Rangers. The ever-flamboyant blonde-haired boy wore a bluish-black bodysuit, over which was a set of metallic lavender and golden armor, a chest plate, 2 spherical shoulder pads, elbow-length vambraces, and knee-length boots. On his chest plate was a high V-neck collar with a golden Greek fret-like trim, same with the lower diaphanous piece under the belt and edges of the vambraces. A long and glittering indigo cape along with a golden ring-shaped buckle with a blue crystal, which Melissa noted was for his quirk, matched the smaller ones over his shoulder and knees, while straight-angled golden lines ran along his baggy pants, with a matching set around his shafts. Finally, a red-tinted wing-shaped visor was worn over his eyes. What? Is he taking part in a fashion show? The Rangers deadpanned in thought. Koda's costume was a tight yellow suit that reached only to his knees and elbows, with a large red marking over his torso that ended at his sleeves. On his chest was a symbol resembling an open mouth, and on his feet were yellow shoes with red lining. For Shoji, he wore a tight blue tank top with 6 markings that resembled eyes, connected at the top to a darker colored mask that was more on the indigo side, designed the same way as the one he normally wore. A belt with another, larger eye shape embedded into the center. This one colored yellow, below of which he wore slightly baggy trousers that matched his shirt, with two dark lines running down the sides of his legs. And finally a pair of indigo boots. Uraraka's costume was a black, full-body suit with a pale pink design down the middle of her torso, topped with two black semi-spheres on her chest, pink stripes which started at her midsection, a deep pink choker, and two-toned pink sleeves with cuffs, with matching pale and deep pink accessories. Said accessories included round gauntlets with handles, chunky, knee-high boots, a two-piece belt with a round buckle, and a set of matching headgear with a tinted visor. A glance at the costume told the Rangers that the accessories were designed to press her acupuncture points. But the costume appeared to be a bit tight. Kirishima's, on the other hand, was anything but tight. His costume consisted of two dark red gear-shaped shoulder pads, with a jagged sash that joined the one on his left to the right side of his belt, which had a red R set into the center. Below was a pair of baggy black pants and half cape with a ripped hem. He was also sporting a pair of dark red boots with thick rings around his calves. His chest was bare, but he wore a wired guard around his face, reaching from just above his hairline to below his jaw, with an extra piece going over the bridge of his nose, with some spiked pieces around his mouth that resembled fangs, giving him a sort of Oni-like appearance. Not demon-like, but it's interesting, Connor said, impressed. Mina's costume was a plain white mask over her eyes, with a purple and turquoise skin-tight bodysuit with a camouflage pattern that ended just above her breasts. Over this, she wore a cropped, sleeveless, tan-colored waistcoat with white fur along the collar, which she left unbuttoned. On her feet was a pair of custom-made plum violet and beige acid-proof boots with holes in the soles, which allowed her to secrete acid from her feet, allowing her to slide around. For Laura, she wore black leather biker pants and boots, short black leather biker gloves with holes at the knuckles. An army green camo, short-sleeved t-shirt was covered by a leather biker jacket with a hood completed her costume. Interesting biker costume, Laura. It looks good, Anthony said. But Laura didn't say anything except nodded at Anthony's compliment. Finally, there was Hagakure, who was simply a pair of light blue gloves decorated by pale pink lines and light brownish-gray lace-up shoes. You sure that's all you need for a costume? Thomas asked Hagakure. I'm good with it, TJ, Toru assured. You don't mind if I call you TJ, right? I'm used to being called Thomas, but I think TJ sounds better, TJ answered. Connor looked around and noticed that someone was missing. I don't see Izuku anywhere. Maybe he's still changing into his costume, he said to himself. The sound of footsteps from the entrance made Connor turn around to see Izuku emerging from the darkness, wear a light green full-body jumpsuit with a red belt, elbow pads, knee pads, and gloves along with Izuku's signature red boots. He also wore a mask with long ear-like protrusions that clearly resembled All Might's haircut, and a respirator with a makeshift smile on it that reflected All Might's own smile. Such a fanboy, he chuckled to himself. Uraraka noticed Izuku's late arrival and was quick to join him. Ah, hey, Deku, love your costume. Not too flashy, you know, she said, causing Izuku to let out a muffled whimper. I should have been more specific about what I wanted. This bodysuit is skin-tight. Not really my style, she admitted, rubbing the back of her head nervously. Be glad there's not a student at this school who lets his hormones get the better of him and say they love the school because of the costumes of the female students. There are people like that in the world, and they are just creepy. Lena pointed out, unaware that somewhere, a certain boy with balls on his head let out a loud sneeze. At that moment, All Might noticed the resemblance of himself on Izuku's costume and let out a small cough under his breath. Now that you're ready, it's time to begin the combat training, he announced. Sir. This is the fake city from our entrance exam. Does that mean we'll be conducting urban battles again? Ida asked with a hand raised. Also, might I ask who the other 4 students are? Not quite. But as for the students, allow me to introduce you all to Thomas Johnson, Anthony Park and Lena Earhart from General Studies Class 1C and Melissa Shields from Support Course Class 1G. The blue, green, yellow, and pink Lightspeed Rangers. All Might answered. This is so cool. 5 Power Rangers at UA, Kirishima said with excitement. And 2 of them are complete hotties. Kaminari added. Did All Might say Shields? As in David Shields? Sato asked. You mean that's his daughter? Ciro asked. Bah, what's the big deal? They're just a bunch of quirkless losers who think they can become heroes because they're stupid Power Rangers. Bakugo scoffed, not impressed with them in the slightest. Students, might I remind you that you're in class right now? All Might reminded, causing the students to simmer down while he continued to explain the exercise he had planned for them. Now then, I'm going to move you 2 steps ahead. Most of the villain fights you see on the news take place outside. However, statistically speaking, run-ins with the dastardliest evildoers take place indoors. Think about it. Backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground lairs. Truly intelligent criminals stay hidden in the shadows. For this training exercise, you'll be split into teams of good guys and bad guys and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. Isn't this a little advanced? Suyu asked. The best training is what you get on the battlefield. But remember, you can't just punch a robot this time or pilot a Megazord. You're dealing with actual people now. All Might answered. Sir, will you be deciding the one who wins? Momo asked. How much can we hurt the other team? Bakugo asked with a grin. Do we need to worry about the losers getting expelled like earlier? Ochako asked. Will you be splitting us up based on chance or comparative skill? Tenya asked. Isn't this cape trash chic? Aoyama asked, holding his cape. I wasn't finished talking. All Might growled, pulling out a small book from his back pocket and opened it. Listen up. The situation is this. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try to foil their plans. To do that, the good guys have to either catch the evildoers or recover the weapon. Likewise, the bad guys succeed if they protect their payload or capture the heroes. Time's limited, so we'll be choosing teams by drawing lots. All Might finished, holding a massive box in his hands. Sounds like the script for a classic action movie. Izuku said aloud. Yeah, and I love those. So long as the end doesn't involve the death of the hero. Connor added. Isn't there a better way? Tenya questioned, not thrilled about the idea of drawing lots. When you think about pros often have to team up heroes from other agencies on the spot. So maybe that's the reason we're seeing that here today. Izuku reasoned. Yes, I see, Ida said, putting a hand to his chin. Life is a random series of events. He then turned to All Might. Excuse me for my rudeness. No sweat. Let's draw, All Might shouted. Oh, and before I forget, the Rangers will be participating in their own combat training after everyone else. But if they wish to partake in mock battles, they may do so. So, no complaints about them getting special treatment because of their powers. Lots were drawn and both Izuku and Ochako drew the balls marked A while Ida and Bakugo drew the balls marked D. Wow, what are the chances? We're a team, Ochako said with excitement, while Izuku was more nervous than he ever was before. I declare that the first 2 teams to fight will be these guys, All Might shouted, pointing to both Ida and Bakugo and Izuku and Ochako. Team A will be the heroes. Team D will be the villains. Everyone else can head to the monitoring room to watch. Yes, sir, the students said at once, except for Laura. As the students headed for the monitor room, Connor noticed Izuku had a determined look on his face, while Bakugo just scoffed. I got a really bad feeling about this, he thought to himself. he was right. Throughout the entire first match, Bakugo was gunning for Izuku, as if he was trying to kill him, leaving Ida alone to guard the nuke. The more Connor watched as Bakugo targeted his friend, he felt his blood boil, and the temptation to interfere with the match continued to rise. His hands gripped the sleeve of his jacket as he continued to watch. To his surprise and delight, he saw that Izuku was using the notes he wrote down in his notebook about quirks to come up with various counters. The fanboy knowledge was paying off for Izuku, but Bakugo was clearly out for blood. Even All Might was concerned the moment he realized that Bakugo had built up enough sweat for big attack. "Young Bakugo, don't do it. You'll kill him," All Might shouted. But that didn't stop Bakugo from unleashing a powerful attack that caused the entire building to shake. "Damn. You weren't kidding when you said Bakugo was vicious. He's like a shark that just smelt blood," Lena said. "It gets worse," Melissa interjected. "Based on the size of the gauntlets, the more sweat he builds up, the more powerful the explosion will be. If he builds up too much, he'll bring the whole building down." "Are you serious?" Kirishima exclaimed, then turned to All Might. "Sir, this is getting out of hand. Bakugo is going crazy. He's going to kill him." "Not so," All Might said, remembering what Bakugo said to him over the radio, but he was still worried. "Bakugo, use that stored up power again, and I'll stop the fight. Your team will lose. To employ such a strong attack indoors is inviting the destruction of the stronghold you should be protecting. That's a poor strategy, where you're a hero or a villain. The penalty would be a massive loss of points." All Might shouted into the radio that Bakugo had in his ear. As Izuku moved towards the window, Bakugo switched to hand-to-hand combat and used his quirk to get behind Izuku, hitting him. "He doesn't appear to come off as a guy with a strategy, but he's actually quite intelligent," Shoto observed. Bakugo and intelligent in the same sentence. "Are you sure about that, Shoto?" TJ asked. "Yeah, I'm with TJ on this." "What are you talking about?" Mina asked. "He changed his trajectory while in midair, using a blast that doubled as a smokescreen. Very clever," Shoto explained. "A feint attack like that requires an extreme amount of precision. He had to calculate the physics and demonstrate control over his quirk." Momo added, "Ugh, that Bakugo is uber talented. I hate it." Kaminari sighed. "This is too hard to watch. All he has to do is wrap tape around him, not kill him," Mina exclaimed. "Bakugo is certainly acting like a villain." Takoyami added, "I thought Midoriya was pretty amazing at the start of the fight, but he's clearly outmatched in terms of combat power. Not to mention Bakugo seems like a natural at all this stuff." Ojiro pointed out, "Talented, he may be, but reckless he is," Connor said, doing a very impressive impersonation of a certain wise old man. "So focused on Izuku he is, that Bakugo does not realize already. His team has lost the match. A plan, Izuku and Ochako have." "Did you just speak like Yoda?" Kirishima asked. "I do a good impression, but now let's watch." Connor answered as the match finally came to its conclusion. Izuku finally used his quirk as both his fists and Bakugo's fists collided, blowing a massive hole through the roof, while Ochako was able to touch the weapon, ending the match, but not without cost. The backlash of using his quirk broke Izuku's arm. "The hero team's wins," All Might declared. "Phew, talk about nerve-wracking. I thought that Bakugo was going to do a lot worse to Midoriya." Gyro sighed with relief. "I think the bruises I got from when Bakugo used his quirk on me are hurting again." Connor sighed, also with relief. "Wait, he used his quirk on you?" Shoji asked. "Yeah, well, Bakugo was quite the bully back in junior high school, especially to Izuku," Connor admitted. "But when it came to me, he'd sometimes send me flying, and I'd end up crashing into a brick wall. I am so going to kill him," Kyoka muttered under her breath. Despite Izuku's injuries, the rest of the matches proceed normally, with Ida being the MVP of the first match for showing the embodiment of evil, while Shoto showed that he was just as powerful as Bakugo when it came to using his ice. But the Rangers noticed that he never once used his left side. When it came to Laura, though, Lena noticed that when she was in combat, she fought like a disciplined and well-trained soldier and used all her senses rather than her quirk. But that didn't stop them from laughing when Aoyama's cape was burnt by Mina's acid, and when Kaminari shocked himself silly. Alright, students, it's time for the Rangers to partake in the combat training. For their training, they will be using the latest simulation technology that many of you might have seen before if you ever took a field trip to Nasada. All Might shouted as entering the monitor room was a red and gold robot with a golden lightning bolt in the center of their body, which glowed entered the room. Who the hell are you? A walking trash can? Bakugo snarled. I am Alpha 6, faithful companion of the Power Rangers and operator of US new simulation training course. Alpha answered. My mission is to protect the Power Rangers and their quest to protect the universe from the forces of evil. One goal, one team, known as the Power Rangers. Awesome. I didn't think I'd ever get to meet a real robot, let alone one at UA, Mina exclaimed with excitement. Please be careful, miss. I'd rather not get acid on me and melt my circuits. Alpha advised. Oh, right, sorry. Mina pouted. Oh, don't worry about it. Alpha waved off. All Might. All systems are online and operational. We can now begin the Rangers' combat training. He told All Might. Many thanks, my robotic friend. All Might said, turning to the students. I suppose I should explain. Alpha here is in charge of the newest training method for those of you in the hero course. When the Rangers accepted the offer to attend UA, the school reached out and requested that Nasada provide us with the same technology used in the simudeck of the Astro Megaship. Due to the systems being more advanced, Alpha here was put in charge of running the simulations. All Might explained. It took a lot longer than we though to prepare the simulation systems. But now they are fully operational, and who better than to break it in than the Power Rangers? Alpha added. Now then, Rangers, please make your way to ground beta, and we can begin your combat training. All Might instructed. You got it, Uncle Might. Melissa said and followed after the other Rangers. Entering the training ground, the Rangers watched as the entire Mach City was covered by a massive dome, which then whirred to life as All Might's voice came over the loudspeakers. All right, Rangers, time to begin your first combat training. Your enemies are the Craterites, foes that the Space Rangers fought. While they might be holograms, heroes must never let their guard down, no matter what foe they are fighting. Your goal for your training is the same as before. Locate and secure the villain's nuclear weapon within the time limit. All Might explained. Craterite, huh? Anthony shrugged, cracking his knuckles and stretching his neck. Well, at least we don't have to worry about any lighting storms bringing them to life this time. He joked. Or having them take the place of actual people. Lena added. Look alive, Rangers, here come the Craterites. Alpha announced over the loudspeaker as from above, appearing as if they were gliding down from space with parachutes. With purple bodies and black disfigured faces were the robotic Craterites. AI yee, I almost forgot. Watch out for the monster leading them. So they got a squad leader, huh? Connor smirked as the monsters landed and stood at the ready with their daggers in hand. Well, if I had to guess, the monster is guarding the weapon, so the only path forward, he began, is to go straight through the Craterites. Melissa finished. Exactly. So, let's not waste any time and let's make this showy. Connor added, holding up his morpher. Ready? Ready, the other rangers confirmed, holding up their own morphers. Lightspeed, rescue, they all shouted and morphed. Begin, All Might shouted. Let's clear a path, Connor shouted and drew his blaster. The other rangers followed his lead and drew their own blasters. Rescue blasters, fire. A barrage of blaster fire downed several Craterites in the front, but the ones behind them charged towards the rangers. Baton mode, TJ shouted and leapt into the air towards the Craterites, landing in the middle of a small group and swung his baton at them, slashing them across the chest. One Craterite managed to get a lucky hit on TJ, but it merely grazed him. Raising his baton behind his back and blocking the attack of another Craterite, TJ kicked it out from under its legs and punched it in the face. The other rangers rushed in to join the battle, with Lena somersaulting over several of the robotic foot soldiers, turning her body around and firing her blaster, hitting several Craterites in the chest. One Craterite knocked her blaster out of her hands, leaving her without a weapon. Backflipping several times, Lena avoided the daggers of several soldiers, landing back on the ground and cross-kicked another soldier, sending it flying into the side of one of the buildings. No damage is the best kind of damage, she said, spotting her blaster and dived for it, scooping it up and fired at one Craterite as it was about to bring its blade down on her. Anthony swatted the punches of several Craterites away, then kicked one in the chest, knocking it back into its comrade. Fireballs from several other Craterites knocked him on his back, and one of them was about to bring its blade down on him. But the Green Ranger rolled to the side and leapt back to his feet, just in time to dodge another blade from his enemies. Let's even the odds, he exclaimed and drew his blaster in baton mode and attacked. Dodging, weaving, and parrying, Anthony countered each of the attacks sent his way. Connor fired his blaster as his sister thrusted her baton into the chest of one Craterite, taking out of the fight while her brother continued to blast the holographic soldiers. TJ, Anthony, Lena, we'll find the nuke. Hold them off, Melissa shouted, raising her baton to block a dagger strike from another soldier. Got it, the other rangers shouted as Melissa and Connor leapt over the Craterites and ran towards the building where the villain's hideout was. From the monitor room, Ida placed a hand on his chin. So, they carved a path through these creatures and allowed the red and pink rangers to go after the weapon. I must admit, a rather excellent strategy, he observed. Huh? Kaminari asked. If the rangers focused on the Craterites and completely ignored the weapon, they would fail in their mission to protect the universe, Alpha explained. Therefore, having two of them go after the weapon and having the others handle the Craterites is the best solution. I have to admit, these rangers are thinking more with their heads rather than their fists, Shoto added. Whoever the monster they have guarding the weapon is, it will take more than two rangers to defeat it. That's why the rangers work as a team rather than solo heroes. Remember, when heroes team up with others, it is important to work as a team rather than a lone wolf. All Might chimed in as on the monitor. Connor and Melissa made their way through the building until they reached the weapon and the monster guarding it. Said monster was a vampirous monster, the same monster that attacked the Temple of Ninja Power, where Ninja created the power coins used by the original Power Rangers. Katana in hand, the vampire bat monster raised its weapon and blocked a strike from Connor, while Melissa slashed at the creature's back. The monster was unfazed by the blow and swung its katana around, slashing at Melissa's chest and sent her backwards. Sis, Connor shouted, only to be kicked back by the monster and crashed into the wall. Leaping into the air, the monster was about to bring its blade down on the Red Ranger, but the weapon was knocked out of the monster's hands by the timely arrival of the other three rangers. Glad you three decided to show up. Hey, we're here, aren't we? Lena quipped, as Melissa and Connor joined them. Wow, and I thought orgs were ugly, but this thing takes the cake. At least it's not one of those monsters that can lay eggs inside you and kill you when they hatch. Anthony added. Let's talk movies later and focus on this ugly thing. Connor reminded the other rangers as the monster jumped out of the window and down to street level. Securing the weapon is our objective, and we could take out the monster. But we can't let this weapon remain in enemy hands. The others nodded and placed their hands on the weapon. The Rangers win, All Might shouted. The simulation shut down, and the vampirous monster vanished, as did the remaining Criterides as All Might, and the other students entered the training ground where the Rangers stood with their helmets off. That's a wrap. Super work. You really stepped up to the plate. And we didn't have any major injuries, except for Midoriya. You should be proud. Excellent first day of training, all around, All Might praised. It's nice to hear some encouraging words after our homeroom class. Mr. Aizawa was kind of a buzzkill. Suyu said. I'm happy to bring such staggering positivity to my alma mater. That's all for now, folks. I should go and check on young Midoriya's progress. Now, watch as a pro exits, like he's got somewhere to be. All Might said enthusiastically and ran from the students so fast that they were amazed. Wow, talk about a manly exit, Kirishima said impressively. Then noticed that the Rangers had powered down and Connor was already heading inside. You going to check on Midoriya as well? All Might's got it handled. He'll be fine. Still, I'm concerned about him, Ichiro. I was Midoriya's only friend in junior high school, so it's natural that I'm worried about him, especially after that fight with Mr. Explosion over there. Connor answered. Were you really his only friend in junior high school? Ida asked. Connor sighed and turned to the other students. I probably shouldn't say anything, but what the hell? Truth is that Midoriya was considered quirkless from his days in preschool. His quirk only emerged recently when he turned 14 because it's so powerful. Think about it. If he got his quirk when he was 4, he wouldn't be able to control it. Seriously. He was bullied because his quirk didn't emerge until he was old enough. Does that explain why Bakugo has it out for him? Toru asked. I only know what I saw in junior high. As for his history with Bakugo, that's not my place to say. Connor said worriedly, turning to Bakugo who just looked away from the Red Ranger. When it comes to quirks, I don't care how flashy they are or what type a person has. It's the personality of the wielder that makes me see what kind of person they are. Besides, I know what it's like to be bullied. The rest of class remained silent as Connor jogged down the entranceway towards the nurse's office. It didn't take him long to reach the nurse's office and was about to enter when he heard the voice of the school nurse, recovery girl, and someone else. Come on, All Might. I know you passed your powers on to this boy, but you can't spoil him. Came the elderly voice of recovery girl from the other side of the door. I am trying not to play favorites. I wanted to consider his feelings though. He needed to see he was capable of winning the exercise. Oh yeah, will you please not talk so loudly about one for all when anyone around could hear, came the unknown voice. Connor knew right away that it wasn't All Might who was inside with Izuku, and for a moment, he considered the possibility it was a demon. But deep down, he felt like he heard the voice before. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the nurse's office door and waited for a response. Yes, came recovery girl's voice. It's Connor Grayson from Class 1A. I'm here to check on Izuku Midoriya, Connor announced. He's still, recovery girl began, but then paused for a few seconds, then spoke. Very well, you can come in. Sliding the door open, Connor was met with the sight of both the elderly school nurse and a skeletal man wearing All Might's costume. Is All Might here? I thought he was checking on Izuku, Connor asked. I can assure you, young man, All Might is here. The skeletal man answered. I'm Tashinori Yagi. Steam then billowed out of the man's body before the muscular form of All Might appeared. But you know me better as All Might. He then deflated as quickly as he inflated and coughed up blood. Damn it. You're All Might? I don't understand. What just happened? Connor asked again. more confused than he already was. I can assure you, I am All Might, but this is what I look like. Tashinori answered, lifting up his costume and revealed a massive scar on his body. And this is the reason why. 6 years ago, I fought a very dangerous villain. I lost my entire stomach, and my respiratory system is damaged beyond repair. Despite all the treatments I received, nothing could fix it. Now I can only maintain my muscle form for 3 hours a day, and that time is slowly decreasing every day. You mean, Toxic Chainsaw did this to you? Connor asked. No, it was someone else. Tashinori answered. Only a few people know about the fight, Dave included, and that's another matter I want to discuss. My quirk wasn't gifted to me when I was born. It was transferred to me by my master. The name of my quirk is One for All. It's a quirk that's passed down from wielder to wielder, with each one enhancing before passing it on to one they deem worthy. So, Izuku's quirk is this One for All. And no one knows about it. Other than a few people? Connor asked, putting hand to his chin. Yes. Recovery Girl, Dave, Principal Nezu, and a close friend know about this. And now you know about it. Tashinori answered. But please, you can't tell anyone, not even Melissa. If people knew about the nature of my quirk, then villains would be targeting the wielder to try and take the quirk. The temptation of this power could corrupt our society, and I don't even want to imagine what would happen if it fell into the hands of the demons. I probably have no right in asking you, but please, keep this a secret. What are you kidding? You think I'd betray your trust? Connor said. Whether you're All Might or Tashinori doesn't matter to me. You saved my life 7 years ago and restored my faith in pro-heroes. It's because of you that I'm the person I am today. You inspired me to become a hero, even if I don't have a quirk, and hearing that your time as a hero is coming to an end doesn't change that. I've waited years to see you again, and now I can finally and properly say thank you for saving my life. All Might sat in silence as Connor continued to speak. Giving your quirk to Izuku, you've given him hope and allowed his dream to be a reality. But that's also now made him a target. Like you said, if the demons learn about your power, and that Izuku has it, he'll be in danger. The reason we came to Yua was to keep the quirks of the students from falling into Olympias's hands. Quirks in the hands of demons is not a scenario anyone wants to imagine, and like you see, that Izuku has a great deal of potential as a hero. What are you saying, young man? All Might asked. What I'm saying is that I'll not only keep your secret, but help Izuku learn to control his power. I give you my word, All Might. I won't breathe a word about this to anyone, not even the other rangers. But there will come a time when you will have to tell them about your condition. Melissa, she has a right to know about this. Connor answered. Besides, if that means I can fight alongside the man who saved my life, for however long you got left as a hero, then I'd consider it a great honor and something that I'll treasure for the rest of my life. All Might sat silently while Recovery Girl listened to the words of the Red Ranger. Hearing those words, All Might couldn't help but smile. Thank you, young man, he spoke. Hours later, night had fallen, but in a deep corner of a forested area, a purple magic circle appeared on the ground and glowed with evil as emerging from the circle was a dark knight with purple armor, black visor, and wolf heads on his shoulders, holding a massive shield which held his sword. After all these years, I have finally returned. Representatives and knights. After an eventful first day, with him injuring himself once again and almost telling Kaken the truth about his quirk, Izuku was fully healed and ready for his second day of school. But there was a problem. He overslept and was now running from the apartment he and his mom lived in to UA, with a piece of toast in between his teeth and backpack on his back. Crap. I overslept. I guess Recovery Girl's quirk drained my stamina more than I thought. Connor always woke me up when he was staying with us. Guess I'm still not used to having him as a roommate. Izuku thought as he turned a corner and ran down an alley, pumping his legs like he was a marathon runner. As he neared the end of the alley, He saw that someone was walking past and tried to stop but failed and slammed into the body of a student in a UA uniform with a sort of heavyset appearance with blonde hair. With them was another teen in a uniform, with a lean body and slick black hair. "Hey, kid, watch where you're going. This isn't a racetrack," the body with black hair said, offering his hand to Izuku, who was knocked to the ground after the impact. "Sorry about that. I'm in a hurry to get to you. I didn't see you guys until it was too late," Izuku replied, pulling himself up, ready to run again when the large kid spoke next. "Hey, wait a minute. I know you." Izuku gulped, then turned to face the large student, fearing that it was someone who he knew from junior high. "You're the kid who took out that 0-pointer in the entrance exam with one punch and ended up breaking his bones. So that means the rumor is true." "Double what rumor?" Izuku stuttered, fearing that someone would realize that All Might gave him his quirk. "That your quirk emerged later than most quirks. I mean, come on. A powerhouse like you getting his power at a young age. I don't think you'd be here right now," the lean boy answered. "Oh, well, yeah. I guess you're right." Izuku sighed with relief. "Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya. And you too are." "I'm Farkas Bulkmeyer. This is Yugni Skulovich. But you can call us Bulk and Skull," Bulk answered. "We're in General Studies Class 1C. We wanted to try for the hero course, but some explosive loving applicant took out the villains we were going after in the exam. Good thing we also applied for General Studies. Otherwise we wouldn't be going to UA, would we? Hey, speaking of which, we better run or else we'll be late," Skull reminded. "Oh crap. Mr. Aizawa is going to strangle me with his scarf if I'm late." Izuku panicked, running for UA, as did Bulk and Skull. Only after Bulk tripped when he realized that his shoelaces were tied together. "I wonder what quirks Bulk and Skull have. I guess I can ask them later," he thought to himself as the three ran for UA, unaware that a dark sphere of energy was flying over them before it zoomed away. When the three reached UA, they found a horde of reporters clamoring around the school entrance. One of them was quick to shove their microphone into Izuku's face. "Hey, you. Can you tell us what it's like to work so closely with All Might?" Sorry. I have to go to the nurse's office." "Yeah, right away," Izuku answered, dashing to the school. "Tell us what's the symbol of peace like in person?" the reporter demanded, this time asking Ochako. What's he like?" "Well, he's super muscle Y." "Yeah," Ochako answered, unsure of how to answer the reporter's question. "How is he faring as a teacher? What are you learning?" the reporter asked Ida. "His leadership and wisdom remind me on a daily basis that I attend the world's most prestigious educational institution. Of course, he's the personification of honor and integrity that one would expect. But he's also not afraid to show his students a more humorous side. It's truly a unique opportunity to be under the tutelage of the pro we all admire," Ida answered. The reporter wasn't pleased with the answer, and then turned to the next student she saw, who happened to be Bakugo. When he was asked about All Might being a teacher, he was recognized as the sludge villain kid, and Bakugo just glared at the reporter, telling her to walk away. At last, the reporter started to give up, going as far to ask Mr. Aizawa, who was at the gates. "Please, sir, can you get All Might for us? Also, you look like a mess. What's your deal? All Might's not on campus today. Now get out of here. You've disturbed my students enough already," Eraserhead told the press, clearly annoyed by their constant questions, turning back towards the school. "But my viewers want to know how he's adjusting to life as a teacher," the reporter exclaimed in annoyance. "I feel like I've seen that guy somewhere before." "But where?" another reporter asked. "I don't know, but he's a bit scruffy for a hero," the female reporter said. "How does All Might ever get anything done with this media circus, stepping on this cape? Good thing they aren't asking about the Power Rangers," Aizawa thought. "All right," the reporter said, storming after Aizawa. If you won't bring All Might, I'll. She began before an alarm rang out and a massive metal door shot out of the ground, blocking her way. Hey, what's happening? She shrieked. Don't you know about the school defenses? This gate is the Yua barrier, the second reporter exclaimed. Defense? It practically killed me, the female reporter exclaimed. Yeah, well, it's designed to stop anyone who doesn't have a student ID or special pass from entering the campus. Guess it works. Apparently, these security sensors are all over the place, the second reporter explained. Keeping the public out? This school thinks it's untouchable. The least they could do is grant me one interview. The female reporter growled. I know, right? We've been here for 2 days, and I don't have a single comment on record yet about All Might or the Power Rangers that are attending the school. The second reporter agreed, but with less anger. Hearing that one of my heroes from my childhood are attending UA, I want to know what they think about this honor. They spoke. Who cares about some teenagers with attitude? I'm more interested in All Might as a teacher, the female reporter said. Unknown to any of the reporters, someone was watching from the trees nearby the school, someone who wasn't interested in asking All Might questions. Homeroom began as normal with everyone sitting at their desks, while Aizawa sat at the front of the podium at the front of the room. Decent work on yesterday's combat training, you guys. I saw the video feeds and went over each of your team's results, the Eraser hero said, then turned to Bakugo. Bakugo, you're talented, so don't sulk like a child about your loss, okay? Whatever. Bakugo scoffed. The Eraser hero then turned to Midoriya. Midoriya, I see the only way you won the match was by messing up your arm again. Connor noticed that Izuku was looking upset at Aizawa's words, but the next words came as a surprise to him and his friend. Work harder. And don't give me the excuse that you don't have control over your quirk. That line's already getting old. You can't keep breaking your body while training here. But your quirk will be really useful if you can get a handle on it. So, show a little urgency, huh? Izuku gasped at the words of his homeroom teacher before responding. Right. Aizawa then turned to Connor. And Connor, you and the other Rangers did an exceptional job with your training. But you need to remember that there will come times when you can't let the villain or monster get away. That's something many heroes neglect for various reasons. Try to remember that next time. And for the rest of you, the simulator will be used by everyone in the hero class, not just the Rangers. He spoke. I understand, sir. Connor replied. Right. Let's get down to business. Our first task will decide your future, the teacher said. There was a long silence with the students all thinking the same thing, that it was another quirk test, but they were wrong. You need to pick a class representative. Oh, good. Just normal school stuff. The rest of the students thought with a sigh of relief, before they all started to recommend themselves for the position, except for Connor, who was looking over a notebook of his own with the notes on the quirks of his classmates, Hado and Ryukyu. Being the leader of the new team of Lightspeed Rangers was enough for him, and he didn't feel like he was the ideal choice to be the class representative. Silence, everyone, please, Ida shouted, breaking Connor's concentration. The class representative's duty is to lead others. That's not something anyone can do. You must first have the trust of every student in the classroom. Therefore, the most logical way to fill this position is democratically. We will hold an election to choose our leader. It's pretty obvious you want us to vote for you, the students thought. Is this really the best idea? Kaminari asked. We've only known each other for a few days. How do we know who to trust? Tsu added. Besides, everyone will just vote for themselves. Kirishima pointed out. Most people will. But that means whoever does receive multiple votes must truly be the most suitable person for the job. It's the best way, right, sir? Ida explained and asked Mr. Aizawa. Do what you want. Just decide before my nap's over. Aizawa said, zipping up his sleeping bag and laid down on the floor. "Thank you for your trust," Ida said aloud. After a short while, the results were tallied and Izuku, much to his surprise and horror, was the class representative with 3 votes. Yaoyorozu was the deputy representative with 2 votes, while Ida had 0. "How did I get 3 votes?" Izuku screamed in horror. "Okay, you idiots. Which of you voted for him?" Bakugo yelled. Connor noticed that Ochako was whistling to herself, making it clear that she voted for Izuku, while the rest of the class was behind the idea of Midoriya being their class rep. While the rep himself was sweating buckets and looking extremely nervous. Lunchtime came around faster than expected as Connor took his tray of food to a table. His tray had a Reuben sandwich with roast beef and Swiss cheese, on toasted bread with ketchup in the middle of it, a bottle of water, banana, and a peanut butter granola bar. Most of the tables on the cafeteria were filled to capacity, so it was difficult to find a place to sit, until he spotted his fellow rangers sitting at a table that was barely filled. "Connor, over here," Melissa called out as Connor walked towards the table. "Man, this place is crowded like an express train. I felt like I was going to get trampled," Connor said as he took a seat. "You do know it's better to get here early before the stampede, right?" Lena pointed out. "Yeah, but Midnight was trying to offer me extra lessons with modern hero art history. Though personally, I think she was looking for something else," Connor said with a chill down his spine, remembering the wink the R-rated hero gave him. "Thank God I'm not one of those creeps who likes her because of her personality. Well, it could be worse. You could have a teacher trying to hit on you, and that's just wrong on so many levels," Anthony pointed out. "It'd be worse if I had a teacher who didn't," Melissa started to say before she saw Bulk, carrying a large tray of food, walking through the cafeteria and sat down at the same table the Rangers were sitting at, with Skull joining him with another tray of food. "Are you sure you can eat all that?" "I've got to eat this much for my quirk. The hungrier I get, the weaker I am in combat," Bulk answered, scarfing down a cheeseburger in one bite. "Besides, I bet you Rangers haven't ripped your clothing every time you used your powers." "Yeah, I remember when Bulky here ripped his pants, his clothing in grade school, and was almost completely naked," Skull said with a laugh, only to receive a glare from Bulk. "Hey, I was only joking. It wasn't funny at all. Well, not to me anyway," he clarified. "I'm sorry, who are you two again?" TJ asked. "We're first years in general studies. You can call us Bulk and Skull. It's easy to remember us that way," Bulk answered, munching on a whole pizza which he finished in about 5 seconds. "We would have made it to the hero course, but we didn't do too well in the practical exam. But at least we signed up for general studies. Easy there, don't forget to come up for air," Skull told his friend, handing him a bottle of water, which Bulk guzzled down in a matter of seconds. He then eyed Melissa. "Wow, looks like someone was right. Don't be eyeing my sister like some creep," Connor exclaimed. "Well, hey, take it easy. I was only saying that someone was right in saying that the Pink Ranger is the daughter of David Shields. Sure, your sister's cute, but I'm not interested in her," Skull said in his defense, unintentionally knocking his tray into the air, which resulted in the pie on the tray landing on his face. Running his hands over his face, he wiped some of the pie off his face, while a few other students nearby laughed. "I hate it when that happens. Sorry about that. I get a little defensive when it comes to people eyeing my sister. Let's just say it's got something to do with a few past experiences where some people broke her heart," Connor explained, handing Skull a few dozen napkins which he used to wipe his face. "You two seem like decent guys, from what Izuku said." "You're Izuku's friend?" "Well, it's no wonder he was talking like he knew the Rangers firsthand. You must really have a lot of faith in him," Bulk said with a smile. "Hey, Skull and I wanted to say thanks for what you did in Hasu. We grew up there after we moved to Japan, and when we heard about what happened, We're glad you stopped that monster. Thanks again. Yeah, Skull added, wiping more of the pie from his face. Got a lot of places in Hasu that meant a lot to me and Bulk. Glad those places are still standing. Well, what do you expect from the Power Rangers? Came the voice of Nejire, who had an empty tray in her hands. They don't give up that easy, and no matter how strong the foe is, they'll destroy them. Hey there, Hado. I thought you said you were interning with Rukyu today? Connor asked the girl he had a crush on. No, silly. That's tomorrow. Nejire corrected with a giggle, taking a seat at the Ranger's table, then spotted Bulk's tray of food. Quick question. Do you have to eat that much because of your quirk? Are you like fat gum? She asked. Not like fat gum. But I suppose you could say our quirks are similar. Bulk answered. Just seconds later, an alarm rang out. What the heck is that? Level 3 security breach. All students please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. Came the announcer's voice of the PA system as the students started to panic. From a nearby table, Tenya turned to one of the upperclassmen and asked what a level 3 security breach was. It means someone's managed to get past the school's barriers. This hasn't happened in my 3 years here. The third year answered as he got up and headed for the door. The rest of the student body, however, was in a panic, with everyone tried to shove past another and make their way to the door, causing what some would describe as a gridlock, and resulted in Bulk's tray of food falling on top of him and Skull, burying them under a mountain of food. Everyone was quick to react, as I'd expect from US students. Ida observed as the mob of students pushed him away from Izuku and Ochako and pressed his face against the window. Who in the world could have trespassed onto campus grounds? He soon had his answer and saw that it was the press who had somehow managed to get past UA's defenses and onto the campus, already asking questions of Present Mike and Eraserhead about All Might being a teacher. I was afraid it was some kind of attack on the school, but there's no need to worry, everyone, Ida shouted, but no one could hear him over the shouts of shoving. Where are the teachers? Why aren't they taking control? Am I the only one who realizes everything's fine? There's no reason for us to be panicking, Ida thought. A yelp from Ochako caught Ada's attention, as the gravity quirk user was slowly being consumed by the tidal wave of students. Tanya, help me, she called out, trying to reach out for Ida, who started to move along the window. What would Midoriya do? Or my brother? Or Connor? How would they handle this? Ida contemplated, then spotted Connor and the other Rangers standing on one of the tables. This gave Ida an idea. I have an idea, he shouted to Ochako, who was confused. Touch my hand. Make me float above everyone else, he exclaimed to Ochako, who understood what he was planning. Once she touched him, and he was above the other students, Ida pulled up his pant legs and activated his quirk. I need a place where I can get everyone's attention, he thought. He soon found the ideal space and activated his quirk, sending him tumbling to the wall above the exit, where he slammed into the wall, making a familiar pose. This is it. Be concise, clear, and confident. Make an impact, he told himself mentally, then took a deep breath. Listen up, everything is okay. It's just the media outside. There's nothing to worry about. Everything's fine. We're US students. We need to remain calm and prove that we're the best of the best, he shouted, finally calming down the students just as the police and an SUV belonging to the Silver Guardians arrived to escort the media off the school grounds. The only injuries from the commotion were Bulk and Skull getting semi-trampled on by the stampede, which resulted in them being taken to the nurse's office by one of their fellow students in general studies by the name of Shinso. After the incident, Midoriya decided to relinquish his position as class representative to Ada. He was able to capture everyone's attention and get us in line. So, I believe that he should be the one leading our class from now on, he reasoned. To say that Ida was honored by the nomination, and that the other students agreed that he had what it took to be a representative made the decision unanimous. much to Aizawa's annoyance, who was still sleeping throughout the whole situation. The rest of the day ended without incident, as Connor knelt down in front of the wrecked part of the wall, picking up a piece of the rubble. From what he gathered, there wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but it made him worried. "I see that the Rangers are also concerned about this," came the voice of a certain hero dressed in a space suit. "We'd be lying and say that it didn't bother us," Lena pointed out. "This isn't something that just happens." "I agree with Miss Earhart," Nezu spoke. "How were ordinary members of the press able to bypass our security systems? Someone else must be behind this. A villain actually managed to infiltrate our school. But was this purely a show of power or a declaration of war? This feels like the opening act," TJ said. "I agree. That's why I've contacted Commander Collins and Captain Myers of the Silver Guardians to assist in a matter of great importance. I need to ensure the safety of the students. That is my #1 responsibility as principal of the school." The rescue morphers beeped as the Rangers answered them. "Rangers, I picked up a strange energy signature in the forest 20 miles outside of Mustafa City. I can't pinpoint the exact location, but I need you to investigate the disturbance. It could be Olympias, and we can't ignore this." Mondo informed them over the communicator. "Got it, Doc. We'll check it out," Kana replied. He then turned to Nezu, the hero in the space suit and Midnight. "Duty calls." "I understand, Mr. Grayson. Please be careful," Nezu told the Rangers as they climbed into the waiting rescue rover and sped away. At the same time, at the Shizuoka airport, passengers disembarked from the flight that had just landed from Angel Grove. Among the passengers was a 16-year-old American boy with brown eyes and brown hair with red streaks. He wore a green and gold tracksuit and white sneakers. As he stood waiting for his luggage, he spotted a news report about the break-in at UA, along with a theory that it had to do with All Might becoming a teacher at his old school, with few mentions of the Lightspeed Rangers and their recent exploits. "Sounds like some people still don't take the Rangers seriously. Not like they used to in the old days," the boy thought before he collected his bag, unzipped it, and checked for a glint of gold. "Good, it's still here. I can't let this fall into the wrong hands. If what I was told is true, then we're going to need all the help we can get." With his bag over his shoulders, the boy hailed a cab, which then drove away from the airport. Meanwhile, Anthony pulled the rescue rover to a complete stop at the edge of the forest, then jumped out with the other Rangers before entering the forest. The night sky hadn't fully emerged as the Rangers moved through the forest, rescue blasters in hand, keeping an eye out for any signs of monsters. "So, what kind of energy do you think the doc picked up?" Anthony asked. "Honestly, I've got no clue. But it must have been off the charts if he had us come and check it out," Lena answered. Not to change the subject, but Bulk and Skull seemed like a nice couple of guys. TJ spoke. "Sure, they can be a bit clumsy, but they seem like they have what it takes to be heroes. Though, I don't want to think about what would happen if they lost their quirks to a monster. Figures they wouldn't get into the hero course because of Bakugo. That guy's always been a combat junkie, and the fewer extras he has to contend with a stow, the clearer his path to being the #1 hero will be," Connor said, lowering his blaster as he checked behind a bush for any signs of the enemy. "He reminds me a lot of the people who caused you to get a lot of detention back in the States. They got away with bullying you, while you were the one who got detention. Not to mention several bruised ribs and few black eyes," Melissa reminded her brother. "Thanks for the memories," Connor deadpanned. The Rangers continued to search through the forest, but found nothing as they came into a clearing in the middle of the forest. "This doesn't make any sense. We should be right on top of the energy source, but haven't found anything. Maybe the dock scanners were faulty," Lena suggested. "I don't think so. I checked those scanners myself. There shouldn't be any faults in the systems," Melissa pointed out. "So, It's not a glitch or a system failure. Then what is it? TJ asked. Think it might be a training exercise? Anthony suggested. I think we've lured into a trap, Connor said abruptly. How right you are, Rangers. A voice came from behind the Rangers, who turned around to see someone emerging through the mist, making their presence known. It is a trap, but not the type you think. Who are you? Connor demanded, pointing his blaster at the armored figure. I am Korak, the Night Wolf, loyal servant of Optimus, the master of all dark magic and enemy of the Power Rangers. Korag introduced, raising his shield and unleashed a barrage of lasers that caught the Rangers off guard, knocking them to the ground. You might not be the Mystic Force Rangers, but you are still my enemy. Now, let's see if you're as strong as you are. Getting back to their feet, the Rangers looked at their foe, looking towards their leader. Connor? Lena asked. He attacked us first, so let's return the favor and give him a fight. Connor told his teammates, raising his morpher up. The other Rangers followed suit and morphed. Lightspeed rescue, they all shouted, morphing into their respective Ranger uniforms. Red Ranger, rescue ready, Connor shouted. Blue Ranger, rescue ready, TJ shouted. Green Ranger, rescue ready, Anthony shouted. Yellow Ranger, rescue ready, Lena shouted. Pink Ranger, rescue ready, Melissa shouted. Connor then raised his hand. People's lives are Earth's future, blazing rescue spirits, protectors of Earth, he shouted. Power Rangers, all five shouted, snapping a salute, and then pointed their arms at Korag. Lightspeed rescue. Drawing his deadly sword from his shield, Korag pointed his weapon at the Rangers, goading them to attack. Come and fight me, Rangers, he challenged. Rescue blasters, baton mode, Connor ordered, drawing his blaster in baton mode, as did the other Rangers, then charged towards Korag with a battle cry, while the Night Wolf himself charged as well. Both sides were unaware they were being watched by Olympius and his new allies from the Skull Cavern. I heard Mother talk about the Master when I was still a child, but I had assumed he was merely a legend. But to see his servant Korag fighting the Rangers is very interesting. Olympius said with his hands folded together. Well, whoever he works for, he's kicking the Rangers' butts. Rito pointed out as the projection showed Korag swing his mighty sword as TJ and knocked him away. Maybe we should see if he'd join us. Korag might be a strong warrior, but he has a flaw. His code of honor is what kept him from destroying the Mystic Force Rangers, a code that he inherited from Leanbow, the man who the Master turned into Korag. Had he abandoned such a code, the world would be much different. Jinxer said, honor is for the weak, like Villamax and Loyax. Deviate said with annoyance. What's the point of fighting honorably if you don't finish the battle? We should destroy them all, send out an airstrike and wipe them all out, Venjix suggested. You assume that we have the means of sending out any form of an airstrike. Molter reminded the general of the Machine Empire. No, Venjix is right. An airstrike would wipe them all out. But seeing as we lack the means to carry out such an operation, we should prepare for such events in the future. Olympius said. The monsters turned their attention back to the projection and watched as Korag swung his blade at the green and yellow Rangers. He is indeed a skilled warrior. I would like to do battle with him one day. Tretron said impressed. Bah, he would only get in the way, Goldar scoffed. For now, let's watch and see where this battle goes. Olympius said, keeping his eyes focused on the battle. Back down on Earth, Korag raised his shield and blocked Lena's baton before slashing her across the chest, then bashed Anthony away with his shield, before raising his blade and swung it at TJ just as he was about to attack. Is that the best you Rangers can do? Korag challenged. Not close enough, Melissa shouted as she leapt in and attacked with a series of fast swings that forced Korag to block with his shield, pushing him back before their weapons became locked with each other. We don't give up that easily. How admirable. Korag chuckled, breaking the lock and swung his blade at Melissa, hitting her in the shoulder and sent her skidding backwards. But your lack of skill leaves much to be desired. Says you, Connor shouted, swinging his baton at Korag, who countered each attack with his shield and sword. We might not be swordsmen like you, but we're better than a villain like you. I am by far a mere ordinary villain. Korag countered, swinging his sword, and knocked Connor's weapon from his hands. Look at you, defenseless without your weapon. I could strike you down easily and without mercy, he said, then lowered his blade. I will not fight an unarmed opponent. There's no honor in such a victory. Pick up your weapon and let us continue this battle. Reluctantly, Connor picked up his weapon and resumed his battle with Korag, but he was clearly outmatched. Korag countered and parried each move that Connor threw his way, as he did with the attacks from the other rangers. Let's see how you can stand this, Korag shouted as his shield opened up and revealed a red eye. Wolf attack. Wolf head blasts of dark energy shot from the shield and slammed into the rangers, knocking them back down to the ground. If this is truly the best of your abilities, then I'm wasting my time, Korag said with disappointment, walking slowly towards the downed rangers. I'll start with the pink ranger first. Placing his foot on Melissa's chest, Korag raised his sword and prepared to deliver the final blow. But his sword was intercepted by Connor's weapon. Brave of you, Red Ranger. But I thought you would have learned your lesson, Korag said, impressed. What can I say? I am a slow learner. But what I lack in skill, I make up for it with determination. Connor countered, knocking Korag's sword away before kicking him in the chest, allowing the other rangers to get back to their feet. Let's show you some real power. Rescue bird, TJ shouted into his morpher. Launching from the rescue bay, the rescue bird flew through the air towards the rangers before it separated into 5 components that each of the rangers caught. Connor caught the claw, TJ the extinguisher, Anthony the hydraulic cutter, Lena the drill, and Melissa the injector. What manner of weapon is this? Korag questioned. Unilacer formation, Connor ordered, attaching the claw to the TJ's extinguisher, which was then attached to Lena's drill. The cutter and injector were then combined and attached to the weapon, as the rangers aimed the weapon at Korag with TJ and Anthony on Connor's right, while Lena and Melissa on his left, all of them bracing Connor's shoulders. Ready, the girls shouted. Aim, Anthony and TJ shouted. Fire, Connor said, pulling the trigger and sent a massive blast towards Korag, who raised his shield to block the blast. But it was far more powerful than he thought and caused him to skin across the ground. No way, Connor gasped. He withstood the Unilacer, Melissa said in shock. I am far stronger than you think, Rangers, Korag rebuffed. Now, let's take this to the next level. Leaping into the air, Korag called on his powers and cast a spell, creating a dark portal. Uthmedger, he shouted and grew to gigantic proportions. But he wasn't done yet. Another dark portal opened up as Korag casted another spell. Uthmedger Catastros. Rising up from the circle was the legendary black and gray horse, known as Catastros, joined his master's side. Now, old friend, let's show these rangers what true power is, Korag told his companion as he leapt into the air and chanted another spell. Uthmedger Ultimas. Catastros' body shifted and formed a set of limbs, back and a glaive weapon, allowing Korag to merge with his mighty steed as his shield formed the chest of his personal Zord. Centaurus Wolf Megazord, Korag announced, glaive in hand as he looked down on the Lightspeed Rangers. Looks like we got to take it to the next level, Connor growled, raising his morpher to his face. Rail rescues. On track, he shouted. Launching from the rescue bay, the rail rescues flew down the tracks before coming to a stop in the forest, allowing the Rangers to deploy the rescue Zords, which they quickly combined into the Lightspeed Megazord as they and Korag stared at each other. Let us see which is stronger, My dark magic or your technology? Korag challenged. You want a fight? Well, now you got one, Lena acknowledged. Let's do it, guys, Connor exclaimed as the two Megazords charged towards one another. Swinging his massive glaive, Korag struck the Lightspeed Megazord in a non-critical area, knocking it back a few inches. But the Rangers stabilized their Megazord and punched Korag in the chest, followed by a few quick chops that forced Korag back. My magic is far stronger than your technology, Korag scoffed, as a pair of dark purple beams shot from his chest and slammed into the chest of the Lightspeed Megazord. Sparks erupted within the cockpits of the Rangers' Zords as they stumbled back. You might use magic, but you can't use it for everything, Connor shouted, pushing the controls forward and attacked. Ladder Bomber. The arms of the Lightspeed Megazord rotated before launching towards Korag with a bombardment of punches that forced him back into a small mountain nearby. He didn't like that, Connor exclaimed. Let's go for a flip. TJ quipped and pushed forward on his controls, sending the ladder arms down to the ground, then back flipped like a Ferris wheel, kicking Korag just as he returned to his feet. Your carnival tricks won't be enough to defeat me, Korag boomed, launching another barrage of dark purple beams towards the Lightspeed Megazord, followed by a barrage of wolf head-shaped blasts that knocked the Megazord to the ground. All 5 Rangers cried out as sparks erupted once more from the cockpits of the rescue Zords, as Korag slowly walked over to them. You call yourself Rangers, but I haven't seen anything that would make me consider you worthy opponents. Korag scoffed, his glaive in hands. As the fight continued, the teenager from earlier noticed a news report on the ongoing fight from his apartment, a few kilometers from Yua. Looks like trouble. He grimaced, reaching into his bag and pulled out what appeared to be a large golden belt buckle with coin that depicted the emblem of a legendary warrior. Back in the forest, the Lightspeed Rangers brought their Megazord back to its feet as Korag readied himself for their next attack. He's just too strong for us, Anthony pointed out, noticing the amount of damage the Megazord has sustained. I hate to say it, but we might have bitten off more than we can chew, Lena added. We're not out of the fight yet. We still got plenty of fight left in us. So let's show Korag what we've got, Connor shouted. Lightspeed Megazord Saber, activate, Connor shouted, pulling the trigger on his controls. Emerging from the Megazord's belt was a slender saber with a golden hilt, and the Lightspeed symbol in the center of the hilt, which the Megazord grabbed. Come on, Korag challenged and charged towards the Rangers, swinging his glaive, which was blocked by the Megazord's saber. Parrying the attack, the Megazord swung its saber, grazing Korag's shoulder before Korag swung his weapon, which was blocked by the Lightspeed Megazord's saber. Both Megazords fought for control, knowing that only one of them would be able to make a counterattack. Korag emerged the victor and knocked the saber away from him and slashed the Lightspeed Megazord across the chest. Impressive. You face a superior opponent, but you continue to fight on despite your lack of skills. I take back everything I said about you Rangers. You are worthy warriors, but now it's time to end this battle. Dark magic spell seal, Korag shouted. Rotating his glaive in a half-turn circle, Korag began to summon a purple seal. Sword, invoke the light. The 5 Rangers shouted as the Megazord spun, its saber around as a fire burned behind it, creating a circle of fire. Victory prominence, they shouted at once, swinging the saber through the circle and slashed Korag as he unleashed his own attack. Both attacks made their mark, but Korag's armor was more durable than the Rangers thought as Korag's attack made a direct hit on the Lightspeed Megazord, knocking it to the ground as sparks flew from its chest. In the end, your attack proved useless, but you fought admirably. It's such a pity that you won't become stronger. I would have enjoyed seeing how powerful you'd all become, Korag stated, raising his glaive to deliver the finishing blow. Controls aren't responding, Connor exclaimed, bracing himself for the hit. But it didn't come. To his surprise, the sound of flute echoed around the forest, followed by the sounds of metallic feet stomping towards them. What the? Who's playing that flute? Melissa asked. It's not me, TJ clarified. Is it Skull? Lena guessed. No, it's not Skull, but wait, look there, Anthony called out. What manner of beast is this? Korag shouted as the mighty Dragon Zord arrived, swinging its tail at Korag, who blocked the tail with his glaive. A dragon. Missiles shot from the Dragon Zord's fingers, hitting Korag as it stood in front of the downed Lightspeed Megazord, roaring and ready for a battle. I don't know where this dragon came from, but it doesn't matter, he announced, glancing towards the downed Megazord. I'll leave you with this bitter defeat and return at a later date. Next time, you won't be saved. He then vanished in mystical energy. In the Skull Cavern, Goldar was furious. The Dragon Zord? Impossible. The Green Ranger's powers were lost years ago. How is someone able to control that Zord? He demanded. Maybe somebody tamed it, Rito suggested, only to be swatted away by Ecliptor. Hey, it was just an idea. A stupid one, Darkonda muttered with a snicker. Korag proved that he is capable of defeating the Rangers, yet he chooses not to finish them off, and the Dragon Zord, who summoned it. I believe we might have more than the Lightspeed Rangers to contend with, Ecliptor said, impressed with Korag's skills. He then turned to Olympius. I suggest we extend an invitation to Korag to join us in our goal of defeating the Power Rangers, he suggested. There's no need, came Korag's voice as he walked from out of the shadows towards Olympius and knelt down. My master is defeated, but the Power Rangers remain my enemy. I pledge my loyalty to you, Prince Olympius, on the condition you let me battle the Rangers my way, he stated. Rise, Korag, Olympius ordered. While I question your honor and tactics, I will gladly accept your offer of assistance. But should you double-cross me, I will destroy you, the Demon Prince warned. As will I if you double-cross me, Korag warned. Then we have an alliance, Olympius said with a smile. Back on Earth, the Dragon Zord quickly retreated as it had arrived, but the Lightspeed Megazord was trashed. Alpha, who watched the entire fight from the rescue jet, knew that the situation would require more aid, so he sent out a message across the stars to other warriors. Attack on the Asci, Part 1. Light years away from Earth, in the Kurova system, laid the planet Co-35, a planet similar to Earth in terms of its environment, and home of the first Red and Silver Space Rangers. After the defeat of the evil Dark Spectre, the inhabitants who fled the planet returned and began to rebuild their home world and prepare it for the unlikely event if their planet was attacked again by the forces of evil. Using technology from captured or destroyed velocifighters, Co-35 developed one of the universe's most powerful planetary defensive forces, with their fighters resembling old F-4 Phantoms, F-5 Tigers, and other aircraft from Earth, as part of their partnership with Nasada after their planet was reclaimed. 4 fighters resembling the prototype F-20 Tiger Shark flew in formation as a massive blue ship with traces of silver and red on its hull, with 2 massive laser turrets ascended through the clouds and into space. On the bridge of the were 3 humans, 2 men and 1 girl. The first boy was 16 and had blonde hair and gray-blue eyes. The girl was 15 with blonde hair and magenta dye streaks, as well as gray-blue eyes. The last boy was 17 years old, with blonde hair and silver dye and green eyes. The blonde-haired boy wore a red shirt, black boots, a gray jacket, and pants. The girl wore a pink shirt, along with the black boots, gray jacket, and pants. The silver-dyed boy wore a black pants and a jacket, and a silver shirt. Each of their jackets had an M symbol on the belt buckle, a colored triangle on a black circle on the left breast area, a white rectangle with a colored line going through them, with the exception of the boy in black. As the massive ship left Co-35, a voice echoed throughout the ship. All systems are online. Initiating jump in 5 seconds. The voice said before the massive ship jumped and left the planet behind. In another part of the universe, outside the Lost Galaxy, lay the lush green planet of Miranoi. Once a planet of nothing but jungles, a large city had been built in the jungle of the planet by both the planet's inhabitants and the colonists of Terra Venture, along with the former slaves of the evil Captain Mutiny from the Lost Galaxy. Like Co-35, the planet had an impressive defense force, consisting of the same fighters that were built by Co-35 and trained by the forces from Co-35. In a remote area of the jungle, a boy of 15 with brown hair and blue eyes approached a set of 5 sabers embedded in stone. Grabbing the saber with the head of a lion in the center of it, the boy pulled the saber from the stone, looking at it for several moments before he mounted his horse and rode back to the city, just as the massive spaceship landed at the spaceport. "You guys got the message too. Looks like something's happening on Earth. Wonder how much it's changed," the boy asked. "Whatever it is, we received a message from Alpha. It must be very important if he used that signal after all these years," the girl answered as the boy boarded the ship, his horse hitched to a post in one of the cargo holds. "We always knew this day would come, but I don't think any of us thought it would happen 200 years later." "Well, we're not going to get answers by just standing around, sis," the blonde-haired boy said as he joined the other two. "Deku, set a course for Earth and power up the semi-deck. We'll be training before we arrive on Earth." "Affirmative," Deku replied as the massive ship left Miranoi, then jumped to Earth. Back on Earth, the early morning sky rose over the ocean as Dr. Tatsumi and Jessica looked at the damaged rescue Zords. The battle against Korag damaged the Zords more than they expected and several systems needed repairs. Never in my entire life had I ever expected to see the Lightspeed Megazord so damaged from a single battle that I'd almost consider scrapping it. Jessica sighed, holding a burned-out circuit board in her hands. "Korag was stronger than I originally thought, but I didn't think he'd return. Doctor, do you think he's joined up with Olympius?" "It's possible," Mondo said, stroking his beard. "But I'm more concerned about that other demonic energy we detected before the Hasu incident. It could be another demon, or even the queen herself. But it appears to be focused outside of the city, far from the population. Perhaps a certain demon has also returned to the mortal world with a purpose of their own," he theorized. "What about the Megazord? It will take a long time to repair it, and the Rangers can't wait that long if another monster grows," Mint pointed out. "Then it is fortunate that we've acquired the Zords built by Hartford Industries. They might not be Lightspeed technology, but it is imperative that the Rangers have backup Zords for such events. If we can modify them to combine with the rescue Zords, then we'll be prepared for whatever the monsters threw at us." "Correct, David?" Mondo answered. "That's right," David said over the computer loudspeakers. "I wasn't expecting Korag to return either, but what's done is done. Now that he's returned, I think it's imperative that we finish the work on those 6 Zords. They might be small, but when they combine, they pack a powerful punch. The perfect weapons for the Zords." "Can I assume that the Dragon Zord showing up the other day was your doing?" Jessica asked. "In a manner of speaking, yes," David replied. "After all, that morpher and the powers that it holds belong to the greatest ranger in history, and with the enemy we're facing, we need all the rangers we can get. He hasn't revealed himself yet, but when the time is right, he will reveal himself." The doctor then rubbed his eyes and yawned. "Forgive me, I've had a long day and I need to get some sleep." "Go right ahead. We'll start work on the repairs and construction immediately," Mondo assured his friend. "By the way, your daughter is doing remarkable in her classes at UA. You should be very proud of her." "I'm always proud of Melissa," David replied before his face vanished from the computer screen, allowing the 2 scientists and Mint to start their work on the repairs. "I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about the breach in US barrier the other day. It must have been a powerful quirk if it destroyed a portion of the barrier, and now I'm starting to question the motives behind it." Was it just a demonstration, or the spark that lit the fuse for a new conflict? Jessica said with worry, pulling her eyes from the computer she was working on. Whatever the case is, the Rangers will be ready to handle the situation. After all, I'm already looking at possible candidates to use the titanium powers. My hope is that the boy I'm looking at can harness the titanium powers, despite being quirkless, Mondo said. For now, all we can do is wait and prepare for the worst, while hoping for the best. For all we know, today will be an easier day for the Rangers. Later that afternoon, the students of Class 1A and Class 1B stood in front of the P building, wearing either some of all of their hero costumes or gym clothes in the case of Izuku and Class 1B. Due to the break-in yesterday, hero training for today would take place at an off-campus facility with Aizawa, All Might, Class 1B's teacher, Sekijiro-kun, aka the blood hero Vlad King, whose quirk allowed him to manipulate his own blood after it leaves his body, and another teacher. The focus of the day's training was on rescue training, something that Izuku was looking forward to. Ever since that video he watched online of All Might's heroic rescue of 100 people in a single day, which inspired Izuku to be just like All Might, and needless to say, Izuku was breaking out in a nervous sweat. I have to take in the practical applications of my quirk and figure out how to use them in a scenario where lives are at stake. If I let the egg explode in the microwave, I'll end up breaking my bones and I won't be able to save anyone. Breaking my fingers to save someone is also out of the question, so I need, Izuku muttered before he felt a familiar hand on his shoulder. Izuku, you're muttering again, Connor pointed out, wearing a red sleeveless shirt, black cargo pants, black military-style boots, and black fingerless hand gloves. I know you say it's a hard habit to break, but you should try jotting down those ideas in your notebook rather than out loud. Curse my bad habit, Izuku said to himself, glancing at Connor. So, I noticed you and the others aren't wearing your jackets. He noticed. Well, Mr. Aizawa said we're free to wear whatever we want, so we figured we'd not wear the jackets today. Connor answered, glancing at the other Rangers who were wearing the same clothing he was, but with different colored shirts. Kind of looks like a fashion trend. Ochako said aloud as she walked over. Hey, Deku, why are you wearing your pea clothes? Where's your costume at? She asked. You saw what happened to it after the fight training. Bakugo tore it apart like a shark, Izuku said, rubbing the back of his head. Oh, that reminds me. I heard that you and the other Rangers fought Korag yesterday. How'd that go? Izuku asked Connor. Long story short, we got our asses kicked. Korag lured us into a trap and nearly destroyed us, both with his Megazord and without. The Lightspeed Megazord is wrecked beyond belief. It can be repaired, but this means we're down a Megazord. We don't have any other Zords to use if a monster grows big. But I'm more, Connor explained before he deliberately bumped into. The person who bumped into him, deliberately, was a blonde-haired boy with blue eyes and had a rather mocking look on his face. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there, the boy taunted. Then again, I don't see how I could take notice of those who doesn't belong to the UA. You don't have powers, so why are you here? Oh, I know. It's because you made a deal with the school so you could show us up. As expected from you, A's resident class of. They started to rant before a karate chop to the back of the neck that knocked him out. The one who delivered the karate chop was a girl with orange hair and teal eyes, also wearing the same UA gym clothes. What did I tell you, Monoma? Don't mock our classmates or the Power Rangers. They're your fellow students, and that means they're respected, quirk-less or not, the girl said as she dropped the blonde boy to the ground, then turned to Connor, Izuku, and Ochako. Sorry about Monoma. He's been like this ever since you Rangers were first reported to have returned and never misses a chance to try provoking someone. He tried it yesterday with that Laura girl. Didn't work out so well. Nothing I'm used to, Connor said, holding out his hand to the girl. He started. I know who you are. Connor Grayson, the Red Lightspeed Ranger, adoptive son of David Shields and his daughter Melissa Shields. The girl interjected. Don't be so surprised. I've hit it off well with your sister. So that's how I know a bit about you. Oh, my name's Itsuka Kendo, Class 1B's representative. It's a real honor to meet the Red Ranger, Kendo said, grabbing Connor's hand and shaking it. Wow, Melissa said she met someone from Class 1B, but I didn't know it was you, Connor said with a chuckle, then looked at Monoma. Is he going to be okay? He'll be fine. I didn't hit him too hard, Kendo answered. So, about what happened yesterday? Before Connor could respond, Ida, with his voice raised all the way to 11 after blowing a whistle, announced that the buses that were to take them to the training grounds were here and instructed everyone to board in 2 lines. Guess we'll talk more later, Kendo said, rubbing her ear as she dragged Monoma onto the Class B bus, while the students from class boarded their bus. None of them, neither the students, teachers nor rangers, noticed that the moment the buses left, they were being followed by a cloaked individual on a motorcycle. The ride to the facility was uneventful, save for the conversation that Sue started when she noticed the similarities between Izuku's quirk and All Might's quirk. But thankfully not one student concluded that Izuku's quirk and All Might's quirk were in fact the same, something which Izuku was grateful for. Bakugo, on the other hand, acted like his usual self when Sue mentioned that with his anger, he wouldn't make it into the top 50 of the hero rankings, while Shoto said that it seemed to him that Bakugo was only interested in being a hero to satisfy his own ego. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Connor groaned from his seat at the front of the bus, close to Mr. Aizawa's seat. Sorry about Bakugo, sir. He's got quite the explosive personality, and I'm thinking I should have said something to you. He apologized. Why are you apologizing? You're not his guardian or his sibling, Aizawa asked. True, but Bakugo's always been like this, according to Izuku anyway, Connor answered. That, and I can tell it's giving you a headache. Well, we don't need to worry about it now. We're here, Aizawa said, as the buses pulled to a stop in front of a dome-shaped building. Everyone, shut up and get in line, the teacher ordered as the students quickly quieted down and exited the bus. All 45 students plus their teachers walked into the massive building. With Manama still out cold as waiting for them in the entrance plaza was the Space Hero 13. Behind her was a sight no one ever expected to see. Holy crap. It looks like some kind of amusement park, Kirishima exclaimed. A shipwreck, a landslide, a fire, a windstorm, etc. 13 started. I created this training facility to prepare you to deal with different types of disasters. I call it the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. But you can call it Asaji, she proudly stated. Just like Universal Studios Japan. The students all thought. Excuse me. But does this also cover disasters like highway and railroad disasters? Melissa asked with her hand raised. Unfortunately, no, 13 admitted, then continued with her explanation of her quirk and how it could be both useful and dangerous. As she talked, Izuku noticed that All Might wasn't present, and from what he saw, it appeared that All Might overdid it on the hero work in the morning. All of you students need to remember one crucial part about being a hero, Vlad shouted. While we also fight villains, it's important to remember that heroes also save lives. While some of your quirks may be better suited to combat and others are better suited for rescue, all heroes must adapt to their situations. Not everything can be solved with fighting. Why the hell not? Bakugo shouted, as if Vlad was talking specifically to him. Settle down, Bakugo, Aizawa scolded, getting Bakugo to grumble. Right. Now that that's over, he started to say when he noticed a flicker of light in the air, then turned around as appearing below them in the plaza was a large black portal, from which a man with several disembodied hands on his face and upper torso emerged, followed by multiple people. Whoa, what is that thing? Has the training started already? I thought we were rescuing people, Kirishima asked. I was going to ask the same thing. One of the Class B students groaned aloud. He had chin-length, messy gray hair, which was rather peculiar in the fact that it never changed shape. Black eyes that were tilted dramatically inward, each of which was lined with a very thick and jagged tan-colored substance. No eyebrows, but like Kirishima, had several rows of sharp, pointed teeth. Stay back, Aizawa shouted urgently as he and Vlad stood in front of the students. This is real. Those are villains. The students gasped, while the rangers scanned the crowd of villains for any signs of a monster, but spotted none, save for a villain who looked to be the one who created the portals who could be a demon. The only real heroes I see are 13, Eraserhead and Vlad King. Perplexing. According to the schedule we retrieved from Yua, All Might should be here as well. The portal creator noticed. So, you scumbags used the press as a cover and sneaked onto the campus. Aizawa realized. Where is he? The hand guy asked. I went through the trouble of bringing so many friends who are eager to meet him. They want All Might, the great symbol of peace. I can't believe he's not here. Maybe if I kill a few kids, he'll come out to play. Those words made the blood of the students run cold. Their training at rescuing people from natural disasters was interrupted by actual villains, with actual quirks, who actually wanted to kill them. Bakugo found the whole idea exhilarating and was ready for a fight. Bakugo's got that look, Connor told the other rangers, while he focused on the bird-like villain with the exposed brain that was standing by the guy with the hands. What look? Lena asked. The look that says, now I can kick someone's ass. He's always eager for a fight. Connor sighed. He gave me that look quite a few times. But these are real villains. How could he be eager to fight so many of them? And how could so many of them get into a UA facility this secure? Kirishima asked. Is the entire campus under attack? Shoto questioned. Or is this their only target? Either way, if the alarm sensors aren't being triggered, then one of these villains must have a quirk that's masking their presence. They carefully chose this isolated facility as an entry point at a time when a class was being taught. They're fools for trespassing here, but they've thought this out. Whatever their plan, they must have a concrete objective in mind. But what is it? Aizawa, Vlad said. I know. The eraser hero replied and turned to 13. 13, get them out of here. And alert the main campus. Actually, if they've got the ability to block our sensors, they might be jamming our regular communications too. Kaminari, try using your quirk to contact the school. Aizawa ordered, glancing at the electric quirk user. On it, Denki acknowledged. What are you going to do? You can't fight them on your own. There's too many of them. Even if you can nullify their quirks, your fighting style's not suited for this. Your power works best in stealth and one-on-one fights. That's not going to help with a group, Izuku said to his teacher. He's right, Mr. Aizawa. You need our help, TJ said in agreement. You can't be a pro if you have only one trick, and I refuse to let any of my students get hurt by these villains, Aizawa said, pulling down his goggles and grabbing his scarf, then glanced at the rangers. You might be Power Rangers, but you're still students and under my care, and I won't let you fight. Besides, I'm not alone. But Connor started to protest before Aizawa ran down the stairs towards the villains. Some of the villains with ranged quirks took aim and were prepared to fire at the homeroom teacher, who wasn't fazed by the fact he was outnumbered. But to their surprise, they couldn't fire their bullets, and soon found themselves bound by Aizawa's scarf and slammed into the ground hard. Vlad King soon joined the fight, using his own blood to immobilize several villains in their tracks, while also knocking them out with hard punch to the face. You villains made a big mistake in attacking Yua. I'll personally make you pay for your misdeeds, he shouted, ducking just in time to avoid a roundhouse kick from one of the villains that wasn't immobilized by his quirk, hitting the villain right in the groin and knocking them out of the fight. I may be a teacher, but I'm also a hero. As the two teachers fought the villains, the hand guy watched. There they go, trying to intimidate us. They are strong, and since Eraser's hiding behind those goggles, we can't tell whose quirk he's erasing. They're making it hard for us to work together or rely on each other's powers. They observed as several villains groaned when they were thrown to the ground. How annoying. The worst thing about dealing with pros is when they live up to all their hype. Whoa, Izuku said in awe as he watched from above. I guess I shouldn't have underestimated him. Analyze later. We need to get the hell out of here, Connor shouted and grabbed his friend's arm, pulling them away and bolted for the exit, only to be cut off by the portal guy. There is no escape for you, the portal villain said. It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves into this haven of justice to say hello. And besides, isn't this a fitting place for All Might, the symbol of peace, to take his last breath? I believe he was supposed to be here today, and yet I see no sign of him. There must have been some sort of change in plans we could not have foreseen. Well, in the end, I suppose it doesn't matter. I still have a role to play. The portal guy continued, only for a few blaster shots to force him back. Well now, this is interesting. The source of the blaster fire was Melissa, who had her blaster in hand and pointed at the portal man. If you think I'm going to let you kill Uncle Might, then you've got another thing coming, she exclaimed. Uncle? The portal man questioned, then chuckled the moment he saw Melissa's morpher. Of course, you're David Shield's daughter, the Pink Ranger. It appears we overlooked the possibility of the Power Rangers being present here. You came an awful long way to be disappointed, Connor shouted. All Might isn't here, so you're wasting your time. Bakugo, Kirishima, and the eyebrow-less guy yelled, standing in front of the villain. Did you think we were going to just stand around and let you tear this place to shreds? Kirishima asked with confidence. No one could tell if the portal guy was smirking or grinning. But when Kirishima, the eyebrow-less guy, and Bakugo attacked, none of their attacks fazed him. You live up to your school's reputation, but you should be more careful, children. Otherwise, someone might get hurt. The portal villain warned as the misty body transformed into misty tendrils. I'll scatter you across this facility to my comrades and your deaths, he shouted as a dark storm blew past the students and 13. Izuku closed his eyes for a brief moment when the wind blew past him, and when he opened them, he found himself falling to the ground and screaming loudly. Crap, 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 he shouted as the ground came nearer and nearer. Closing his eyes, he braced himself for a painful death, only to find himself caught in the large hands of Kendo. Hey, Midoriya, are you okay? Kendo asked as she lowered her enlarged hands, allowing Izuku to put his feet back on the ground. Why, yeah. Thanks, Izuku stuttered. I think that portal guy scattered us all over the place, she said, noticing the area they were sent to was a forested area. I don't see anyone else, so I think it's just the two of us, Kendo started to say before a voice echoed from above. Look out below, Connor shouted as he flew through the air and landed in one of the nearby trees while Melissa landed on her feet. That was not on my agenda today. Flying through the air by a gust of wind was not planned, Connor grumbled, only for the branch that he had landed on gave way and crashed to the ground. Oh, that hurt? You too, okay? Kendo asked. We're fine now, but we might not be later, Melissa exclaimed as exiting the forest were dozens of villains. Guess this is what the portal guy meant. He'd scatter us to places where the other villains are so they could kill us. All part of their plan to kill Uncle Might. They aren't the only ones with a plan, came the voice of Olympius as he materialized in front of both the villain and students, the latter of whom gasped. I am Olympius, son of Queen Banshira and prince of all demons. That monster's a demon, one of the villains exclaimed in fear. Who cares? No one gets our way. Time to kill these. Another villain with confidence started to say before Olympius launched fireballs from his eyes at the villain, burning them to a crisp. Holy hell, he just killed him. A third villain shouted in fear. I am the prince of all demons and the future king of all demons, Olympius shouted, leaping into the air, and hovered above those below. And I am the future ruler of this world. You so-called villains are nothing but then children with no grand ambitions, but your quirks make you valuable. The prince said, raised his hand, and then absorbed the body of the villain he killed. Ah, such a strong quirk. Strength enhancement, oh that will come in handy. He then descended back to the ground, this time on a small cliff that was in the forest. Which of you is next to try and destroy me? He challenged. Most of the villains panicked and ran away, but some of them charged at Olympius, who was amused as he raised his spear and cut down the villains with little effort, absorbing their lifeless bodies into his star power. Pathetic. He scoffed, then turned to Izuku, Kendo, Melissa, and Connor. Let's see if you are more of a challenge. Izuku and Kendo backed away slowly, having witnessed a true monster kill actual villains and absorb their bodies into the star in his chest, and felt fear. As they backed away, Olympius slowly walked towards them, only to be stopped by Connor and Melissa, who stood in front of their friends. You leave our friends alone, Connor shouted. We won't let you kill them, Melissa added. You two rangers against me? Ha ha, I find that laughable. Olympius cackled. If you wish to fight me, then go right ahead. You asked for it, Connor challenged. Both siblings raised their hands and morphed. Lightspeed rescue, they shouted and morphed into their ranger uniforms, taking a fighting stance. Give it your best shot, Rangers, Olympius challenged, still eyeing Izuku and Kendo. Here's a little something for your friends to deal with. Snapping his fingers, a group of batlings appeared all around Izuku and Kendo. But they weren't alone. With the batlings were the gray rock-like creatures. What the hell are those things? Kendo shouted, raising her hands defensively as the creatures surrounded her and Izuku. Putty patrollers, Izuku exclaimed. They're Rita Repulsa's foot soldiers. I thought they were destroyed. How did Olympius get his hands on them? Ha ha ha. You really think I would use only demons? I've gathered allies from all across the universe and revived them to fight you Rangers. The strongest warriors and villains ever faced by you Rangers. This time, you'll be defeated and at last, we'll have our revenge, Olympius proclaimed, firing a blast of energy into the air, confirming his words. Anthony, Lena, Gyro, and Momo, along with a rather hairy-looking student and one with vines for hair from Class B, had been sent to the mountain zone and were surrounded by both villains, Cogs, Putties, Goldar, and Elgar. Shoto and TJ, along with a girl from Class B with dark green hair and eyes, were surrounded by Quantrons, Ecliptor, and multiple villains in the landside zone, while Kirishima, Bakugo, and the eyebrow-less student from Class B were surrounded by villains in the ruins zone. As you can see, we've prepared for such an occasion. None of you will escape. Olympius said. Our classmates. Izuku gasped. He's got them surrounded. Kendo muttered. Ecliptor, Elgar, Goldar, they're alive. Melissa gasped in shock. So, you brought back some dead guys, big deal, Connor shouted towards the demon prince. I don't care if you got the actual demons of the Ars Gosha on your side. You'll never beat us. We'll always be there to fight for what's right. He then charged forwards and drew back his fist. But Olympius caught it and kicked him away. Pathetic. Destroy them. Olympius ordered his soldiers, who rushed in to attack their enemies. One of the putties swung its right hand, which was encased in a large rock ball at Kendo. But she kicked the feet out from underneath the creature and punched it in the chest with an enlarged fist. Another swung its razor-sharp blade at her, but she ducked down just in time to only lose a few strands of hair, kicking it backwards, during which she noticed Izuku wasn't using his quirk. Midoriya, now would be a good time to use that quirk of yours, she shouted. This would be the right time to use one for all. If I had any control over it, I'll just end up breaking my bones, Izuku thought, only to take a kick to the stomach from a battling, which then tossed him into one of the nearby trees. Why am I just thinking about using my quirk? Connor taught me some basic self-defense moves when he stayed with me and my mom. Raising his arms, he parried the punches from a battling, grabbed it by the shoulders, and kneed it in the gut, before tossing the monster away. Another battling fired a blast of energy from its sword at him, but Izuku rolled out of the way before the blasts could hit him, grabbing a rock which he then threw towards the battling, whose next blast went wide and slammed into a putty, breaking it into rocks, while the battling itself took a punch to the face from Izuku. Why did I forget about the lessons Connor taught me? I can defend myself until I have control over my power. That's the way, Izuku, Connor praised, raising his baton to block the blade of a putty, then slashed it across the chest, quickly raising his weapon as several blades from both putty and battling came down on him, pushing him to the ground if only for a few seconds before pushing their blades up, allowing him to cut them down in a single strike. You're finally using those moves I taught you. Go and show them who's boss. Sprinting towards a group of foot soldiers, he slashed his way through the group with no mercy, then turned his attention to Olympias, who was observing the battle. Melissa leapt overhead, firing her blaster at the soldiers below, hitting several of them as she landed, then fired again, taking down more enemy soldiers with precise shots. The batlings were knocked down, while the putties broke into pieces of hardened clay. One battling swung its weapon at her, but Melissa raised her hand to block the weapon, then fired a point-blank shot to the creature's chest, taking it out of the fight. As Izuku kicked away another putty, his mind raced with the words that the rap villain said. They expected All Might to be here. That means they knew our whole schedule, and who would be here. They must have gotten into the school's files while we were all stuck in the cafeteria, he thought. But his distraction allowed a battling to grab him by the shoulders and throw him into a tree, hard. As he groaned from the impact, his mind raced again about the current situation they were facing. The teachers were busy trying to get the media off school grounds. That means it's just like Todoroki said. They've been waiting for the perfect time to attack. But what does Olympias want quirks for? Does he plan to use them to revive his mother? Enhance his monsters? There are still too many unknowns. Whatever his plans are, I need to focus on what's in front of me. A pair of putties grabbed Izuku from behind, holding him in place as another putty, this one with blade arm prepared to cut him through, only for Uraraka to appear with a flying kick to the putty's head, allowing Izuku to break free from the grip of the two holding him. Uraraka, where did you come from? He exclaimed. I got swept up by the gust of wind and landed in a tree. I only just spotted you, Kendo, Connor, and Melissa just now and saw those villains running away. Ochako answered, raising her left arm to parry an attack from a putty. I thought putties were used by the Rita girl and Zed guy. I don't know how Olympias managed to bring these things back. But the villains, Izuku answered, running over to Ochako once he was clear of the enemy. If they're here for All Might, they might have a way to defeat him. They wouldn't have planned this attack if they hadn't. But why him out of all the heroes? Because his very existence discourages villains and evil. Because he's the one and only symbol of peace and justice. He wondered aloud. Can they really kill All Might? Kendo asked as she ran towards the two of them. Actually, it doesn't matter. I don't care what their reasons are. If they can beat him, then we have to stop whatever it is these guys are planning. We have to work together and keep All Might safe. No one at UA knows what's happening. This is up to us. Let's be heroes, Izuku said with determination, getting Kendo and Ochako to nod their heads in agreement before a group of putties attacked them. Landslide zone. Ecliptor parried a strike from TJ's baton, allowing the green-striped villain to slash him across the chest, while the green-haired girl, Setsuna Takage, flung pieces of her body towards a Quantron, knocking it to the ground hard. But one of the silver-armored soldiers swung its Q blade at a piece of her body, destroying it. But thanks to her quirk, the piece that was lost quickly regenerated. I didn't expect to be fighting robots today. I was prepared for rescue training, not combat, she grunted, picking up one of the fallen Q blades and raised it high to block the blade from another Quantron. But her weapon was knocked out of her hands. Crap! TJ was flung towards her, clutching the area on his chest where Ecliptor hit him. TJ, she exclaimed and ran to his side, helping him up. You, okay? No, this guy's tougher than history made him out to be. TJ answered. Shoto waved his hand and froze several villains in place. Aren't you embarrassed to lose to a child? For God's sake, you're adults. Put up a real fight, he said, unimpressed by the powers of these villains, then waved his hand again and froze several Quantrons in place. Even if they aren't with the villains, it's clear that the plan was to scatter us and then kill us. They were woefully unprepared, he noted, then turned his attention to another villain, one who soon joined his comrades in ice. In fact, it looks to me as though you've had no training. You haven't the slightest idea how to use your quirks, he said to the villain he just froze, walking over to them. How do they plan to kill All Might? At first, I thought they gathered a force of elite criminals who could simply overpower him. But that can't possibly be their master plan. Most of these villains are low-level thugs, just pawns, but now we're contending with actual monsters, who clearly aren't working with these villains, he thought. As TJ traded blows with Ecliptor once more and Setsuna flung her body parts at the Quantrons, Shoto approached the villain he froze. From what I can tell, there are only 4 or 5 truly dangerous people here. If that's the case, then what we need right now is more information, he thought, then stopped in front of the frozen villain. Listen well. If you stay frozen, your cells will slowly die as your body succumbs to frostbite and hypothermia, he told the villain, who whimpered like a coward. Luckily for you, I want to be a hero, so I'd like to avoid any unnecessary cruelty. But I can only do that if you tell me how you plan to kill All Might and where Ecliptor came from. That's the only way you'll survive, he demanded. Mountain Zone. One of the villains grunted while Kaminari screamed, running away after the villain tried to kill him. These dudes are terrifying. My whole life just flashed before my eyes. I think I saw the Grim Reaper. What's going on? He shouted in panic as Gyro, Momo, Anthony, and Lena stood with their backs facing the mountain. Could you maybe take it down a few notches? Gyro demanded, holding a short sword in her hands, parrying an attack from one of the villains, while Momo batted one away with a staff. Right now, we need to focus on getting away from these enemies, Momo interjected, looking at the large group of villains and foot soldiers, several of which were fighting against Goldar and Elgar. Then pull out a weapon for me, too, Kaminari demanded. You're the one with electrical powers. Just zap 'em so we can run. Gyro reminded the blonde-haired boy. Were you not paying attention during combat training? Some partner you were. I can cover my body with electricity. But if I try to shoot it out, it'll go everywhere. Lena and Anthony can take it. But I'd take you and Yaoyorozu out. Not to mention Shiozaki and Shishida as well. Or did you all want shock treatment today? Kaminari pointed out. I can't even call for help because there's still interference jamming the signal. I'm counting on all of you. I'm no help in this situation. You gotta get us out of here. You're a real damsel in distress, aren't you? Gyro deadpanned. With a sort of feral roar, the beastly Jiroda Shishida lifted up one of the villains and tossed them into a small group of their comrades, but was left wide open when one of the villains, a muscly-looking man with a large blade in his hands, to charge at him. Thankfully, the villain's attack was stopped by a shield made from the vine-like hair of his classmate, Ibara Shiozaki. I am terribly sorry, gentlemen, but none of you will be killing us. It is our job as future heroes to protect our flock from villains like you. Wait, does that mean you're a shepherd? Elgar asked after teleporting in front of both the heroes and villains in front of him. 'Cause you look more like one those people who'd own a vineyard. You moron, destroy them, Goldar scolded, raising his blade, ready to bring it down on Shiozaki, only for Anthony to block the blade with his baton. Ah, the Green Ranger. Back off, monkey boy, Anthony exclaimed, kicking Goldar in the stomach, which knocked him back a few feet. I don't know why you and Elgar are here, but that doesn't matter. Whatever you're after, you won't get it. As Anthony and Goldar started to clash blades, Elgar and Lena also started to trade blows. Elgar swung his blade at Lena, but she raised her baton to protect herself, then countered with a strike to his chest, which made its mark. Is that sword made out of playing cards? What are you, a card shark? Lena questioned. What? Do I have a fin or gills? I'm a mutant, ranger, and proud of it. Elgar shot back, pushing Lena's baton away and slashed her shoulder. Besides, I'm a better pilot than most of the baddies that Olympius brought back. And that's not counting the 2 that fled after he said we'd go after kids with strong quirks. You're a despicable creature, targeting the young and helpless like you're some kind of pirate, Shiozaki shouted as she helped Lena up. Listen, sweet cheeks, I like pillaging and plundering. If I got to go through a few kids, I'll gladly do it. Elgar laughed, then rushed the 2 girls, but was tripped up by Shiozaki's vines, which sent him tumbling off the mountain. Oh, come on, he shouted as he rolled down. Kaminari watched as Elgar tumbled down the mountain, leaving him distracted as one of the villains who tried to punch him, and stumbled back towards Gyro. New idea. You're my human stun gun, she said, kicking Denki towards the villain, who he then electrocuted, much to his surprise, and then assured that he had everything under control. You are exhausting, Gyro groaned. Her focus on Kaminari was short-lived as she spotted a villain using his quirk to throw a large boulder at them, but quickly plugged her jacks into her boots and sent a powerful soundwave attack that not only shattered the boulder, but sent the villain's fist into Kaminari, giving the villain a shock, then a third one that Momo caught with a net. You're lucky that worked out so well, Momo said. I'm sorry. Next time I'll ask before saving our butts, Gyro retorted. A cog was thrown into a group of putties by Shishida, knocking them down before a hairy fist slammed into the face of villain, knocking them out. All my life, people have called me a beast because of my appearance. Now, I'll show these villains that this beast is a hero, Shishida roared, leaping into the air, and landed on a cog, punching it in the face several times. Hey, Shishida, get your ass over here unless you wanted to get shocked, Gyro shouted as a villain tried to get the drop on her from above, only to be kicked away by Momo. It's ready, Momo grunted as coming out of her back was a large sheet of insulation, 100 millimeters thick. Shishida and Ibara were quick to race underneath the insulation, as were Lena and Anthony, who didn't want to take the chance of finding out firsthand if their suits could protect them. Heh, badass, Kaminari smirked, then turned back to the villains and foot soldiers. Now I don't have to worry about hurting my friends. You guys are fried. Indiscriminate shock 1.3 million volts, he shouted, channeling his electricity into his hands, then released it into the ground. Goldar saw what Denki was up to and quickly flew away, while the villains were electrocuted and rendered them unconscious. Now then, I'm worried about the rest of our classes. We should find them right away, Momo said, peeking out from underneath the sheet, much to Gyro's shock as most of her costume was torn to shreds. But she brushed it off, saying she could always make new ones. But Kaminari, on the other hand, was rendered useless after his quirk fried his brain, making him babble like an idiot. I hope you don't make a habit of this, destroying your clothing in battle, Shiozaki scolded the deputy representative of Class 1A, unaware that Goldar was coming back for another round. Forest Zone. Fireballs were launched towards Connor and his friends, sending them flying as Olympius joined the battle after observing the fighting skills of the rangers and students. He swung his spear at Melissa's chest, knocking her into a tree and demorphed, while Izuku, Kendo, and Ochako were covered in scratches. "Who's next?" Olympias asked. His answer was Connor was still morphed and rushed in with a kick. But Olympias countered with a series of punches to Connor's chest, then tossed the Red Ranger away, resulting in Connor demorphing as well, battered and bruised. Clutching his chest in pain, Connor Sound found himself face to face with Olympias as the Prince of Demons pressed his foot on his chest and looked directly at him. "Know this before I destroy you, Red Ranger. I do not associate myself with this so-called League of Villains. My goal is to revive my mother so we can bring about the destruction of your world," Olympias said. "That won't happen," Connor spat, spotting his rescue blaster nearby, and tried to make a grab for it. But Olympias pushed his foot down harder on his chest, causing him to cry out in pain. "Oh, but it will, and you won't be around to stop me," Olympias said deviously, grabbing Connor by the neck, and then lifted him into the air before he conjured up a dagger. Time to die. Time seemed to slow to a crawl, as Izuku watched his first friend in many years was about to be killed. With no control over One for All, he couldn't risk breaking his bones just to save Connor. "No, it can't end this way. I won't let Connor die. I won't let him," Izuku thought, then spotted the rescue blaster. His legs moved on their own as Izuku ran for the blaster. But Olympias was quick to launch fireballs at the quirk inheritor, all of which didn't Izuku from his goal. Diving for the blaster, he scooped it up and skid across the ground, then fired the blaster. But Olympias raised his hand to deflect the shots. "Very brave of you, boy. But you're no ranger. That being said, I'll destroy you first, hero." Olympias cackled, raised his hand, and launched a fireball directly at Izuku. "Deku!" Ochako shouted in fear. "Look out!" Kendo screamed. "Get out of the way!" Melissa screamed as well. "Izuku!" Connor shouted, raising his arms in front of his body. Izuku shut his eyes, braced himself for the impending strike, but it never came. Opening his eyes, he found that the fireball had been stopped by the last person he ever expected. "It can't be," Izuku muttered in awe as the two rangers and two students looked in awe as standing in front of Izuku with his staff creating a sort of shield was Diabolico himself. "Olympias!" Diabolico snarled, glaring at the demon prince. Attack on the Asji, Part 2. His legs' engines pumped rapidly as Ida ran down the road towards Yua. Thanks to the efforts of his classmates and the students of Class B, he was able to escape the Asji and, on orders from 13, who was injured by the rapping villain, was racing to get help. "I have to get to Yua. My classmates need me to bring help. They're all counting on me, and I can't let them down," Ida thought to himself as he rounded a corner and was just about to reach Yua's main building when he unexpectedly slammed into Bulk and Skull. "Whoa!" Bulk exclaimed as he landed flat on his back, while Skull dropped all the books he was carrying. "Ida, what's going on?" "This isn't the Indy 500, Bulk exclaimed. "What's the Indy 500? Skull asked. "I need to find the teachers immediately," Ida explained. "Villains have attacked the Asji along with monsters." "Are you serious?" Skull gasped. "Why haven't the alarms been triggered? How did they get in?" "I don't know. But if I don't get help, they'll kill everyone. I need to get the teachers now," Ida exclaimed. "I'm the class rep of Class A, and I won't abandon my classmates just to save myself." Bulk and Skull were quick to bring Ida inside the main building, but they were unaware that All Might was nearby and heard everything, activating One for All, and leapt into the air in the direction of the Asji. "Hang on, students. I'm on my way." Asj. Forest Zone. Izuku, Kendo, Ochako, Melissa, and Connor gasped as Diabolico appeared in front of them, glaring at Olympias with a fire in his eyes. "Diabolico? Alive? But how?" Izuku said in surprise. "Diabolico? Impossible," Olympias gasped in equal shock. "I should have known you would be planning on resurrecting your mother. You're just as naive as before. Your mother cared little for you and saw you as expendable," like the rest of those loyal to her. Diabolico spat, glaring at the demon prince. You're nothing more than a traitor. It's because of you that my mother was trapped in the shadow world by the Lightspeed Rangers. You betrayed your own kind. Olympius spat back, throwing Connor to the ground. Serving your mother would lead us only towards destruction. When I trapped you in the shadow world with the Rangers, your mother called you a failure and left you there to rot for all eternity. She never cared about you in the slightest. Diabolico countered. Liar. My mother loved me and would never abandon me. Olympius growled, launching a powerful stream of fire from his hands towards Diabolico. But his foe launched a blast of golden sound waves from his chest that cancelled out his attack. You're as pathetic as you ever were, Olympius. Diabolico countered, his staff glowing as it changed into a golden sword, then turned to Connor. Red Ranger, take your friends and leave the area. I'll deal with Olympius. Unsure, Connor was quick to get back to his feet and ran towards Izuku. Come on, we got to find the others and, Connor started to say before Diabolico interrupted him. You don't need to worry about the other Rangers. I have allies helping them right now. Diabolico assured. Mountain Zone. Lena, Anthony, Shiozaki, Momo, Shishida, and Gyro each had their hands up as Kaminari was held hostage by one of the villains that managed to avoid his shock, while Goldar and the putties surrounded them, only for a wrecking ball to crash into the villain's chest, thrown by none other than Loyax, who leapt down and drew his broadsword, cutting down the putties that stood in his path. Rangers, young heroes, go, I'll keep them busy. Loyax shouted as he slashed a putty across the chest, then unleashed a devastating blast of lighting from his eyes that knocked down several more putties before his sword clashed with Goldar's own. I won't let you harm these youngsters, he declared, pushing Goldar back before he charged towards his foe, giving the Rangers and heroes a chance to escape. Landslide Zone. TJ and Setsuna laid on the ground, wounded as Ecliptor and several Quantrons surrounded them. I was expecting a challenge when Olympius said he planned on attacking the Rangers, but I'm greatly disappointed in what I've seen. The green monster scoffed, raising his sword as he prepared to bring it down on Setsuna, only to be stopped when he heard the sound of a motorcycle's engines echoing around the zone. The echo grew louder as a motorcycle sped down the landslide with a cloaked figure driving the machine, a sword in hand as he sped by and slashed several Quantrons in a single pass, then stopped his bike, getting off it. Who are you? Ecliptor demanded. You should know that, Ecliptor, the cloaked rider said, removing the cloak to reveal himself as Villamax. After all, I fought you many times long before you joined Dark Spectre's ranks. Villamax, Ecliptor exclaimed as Villamax charged towards him and swung his sword, which Ecliptor blocked with his own sword. I should have known you'd return and get in the way. At least I don't delight in needless destruction like you do, Villamax countered, kicking Ecliptor in the stomach and knocked him back, allowing him to glance back at TJ and Setsuna. I'll hold him off. Get back to your classmate, fast. The swordsman told the two students, who were confused as to why Villamax was helping them, but didn't ask questions at the current moment and ran. Ecliptor, however, was quick to raise his right hand and fired a pair of energy beams from his eyes towards the Blue Ranger and Lizard Tail Splitter Quirk user. But Villamax deflected each of the beams with his sword, covering the two as they ran. This battle is between you and me, Ecliptor. It's time we settle our unfinished match from so long ago, Villamax said, his sword raised high as he charged towards Ecliptor once more. Forest Zone. Villamax and Loyax are here as well? Connor exclaimed. I'll explain everything later. Go, Diabolico shouted. Right, Connor said, confused by the current situation. Does someone want to tell me what the hell is going on here? Kendo asked. I don't know, but we can find out later, Melissa answered honestly as they retreated into the forest. Once they were clear, Diabolico turned his full attention back to Olympius. If you want those quirks, you'll have to go through me, Diabolico snarled. Olympius was more than happy to oblige as he charged towards Diabolico, launching fireballs towards the golden demon who stood his ground, then raised his sword to block the prince's staff, then kicked the prince back. Olympius used his staff to slow himself, but rather than attack Diabolico again, he just leapt into the air and hovered in the air. "I don't have time for you, Diabolico, but I'll leave you with some friends to play with," he said, then snapped his fingers, summoning more batlings to the forest while he flew away. "So, time has made you a coward, Olympius," Diabolico snarled as the prince flew away, leaving him alone with the batlings. "I'll deal with all of you first. Time to see if I'm rusty after all these years." He then charged towards the who were more than willing to charge at him, their own weapons ready for a fight. Slashing one batlings across the chest with a diagonal strike, Diabolico fired off several energy blasts that took out several batlings, then unleashed a powerful burst of sound waves from his chest that knocked his foes back, one of which was then cut down when he threw his sword at them. "Taste the lighting," he said as storm of blue lightning bolts rained down on his foes. One bolt struck one of the trees, setting it ablaze as embers from the trees set more trees on fire. "How you were all able to destroy the Aquabase and take control of the Life Force Megazord is beyond me, but I will not let you all take one step further." A flaming branch fell to the ground as Diabolico launched his fists at two of the bat-like creatures, which grabbed hold of the creatures while his body was pulled towards the creatures, who he then tossed aside into one of the flaming trees, recalling his sword to him. A punch to the stomach of a battling was followed by a sweeping kick that knocked another to the ground, as Diabolico continued to hold his own against the group of batlings, raising his sword, which returned to its staff form and called down another storm of lightning bolts that exploded all around him. But one of the batlings was able to get a shot with its rocket launcher, hitting him right in the chest before he even noticed it. "It appears I could use backup," he said to himself, then noticed something flying through the air and coming right towards him. The light landed in front of him and then faded, revealing an individual wearing a white suit with a black shield over his chest, with traces of gold on the helmet, belt, gloves, and boots, while secured to their waist was a short sword with a tiger head on it. "A ranger," Diabolico exclaimed in surprise. "Looks like you could use a little help," the White Ranger said, drawing his short sword before charging towards the batlings, with Diabolico joining him shortly. As Diabolico and his ally engaged the batlings, Connor, Izuku, Kendo, Melissa, and Ochako ran through the forest as fast as they could, hearing the distant sounds of fighting behind them. "Okay, can someone tell me why a demon showed up to save our lives? I thought demons were evil," Kendo asked. "That wasn't no ordinary demon. That was Diabolico, one of the strongest demons ever fought by the Rangers," Melissa answered. "I thought he was locked away in the Shadow World with the rest of the demons. Guess he must have escaped from the Shadow World as was keeping his head down." Connor surmised, but came to a stop when he heard a rustling from the bushes. He was about to draw his blaster, but stopped himself when he saw that it was Anthony, Lena, TJ, Setsuna, Momo, Gyro, Shiozaki, Shishida, and a still dumb-looking Kaminari. "Let me guess, you guys were attacked by long-thought-to-be dead villains and ended up being saved by the last person you expected, right?" Connor guessed. "Yeah, Villamax saved our lives," Setsuna answered. "A noble warrior called Loyax saved us from the likes of the ones called Elgar and Goldar," Shiozaki said. "Former devils have returned as shepherds to guide and protect their flock." "Goldar and Elgar?" Izuku exclaimed. "I thought it was just Ecliptor who returned, but it seems there were more of them than we thought," TJ pointed out. "I could barely hold my own against him. Diabolico saved us." "But what about that white light we saw?" Ochako asked. "Maybe," Izuku said before they all heard a scream of pain from ahead of them. "Maybe we should focus on this later and get back to the teachers." "Yeah, I'm with Izuku on this. Let's get out of here before we get surrounded again." Connor agreed and led his fellow students out of the forest and towards the entrance plaza, only for a horrifying sight to await them. Vlad King and Aizawa were severely wounded and surrounded by villains, while the guy with the hands on his body watched as the black humanoid-looking creature with its exposed brain, beak-like mouth, beige pants, and metal knee pads grabbed Aizawa and threw him to the ground hard. "Eraser!" Vlad shouted, only to be decked in the face by a villain that managed to sneak up on him, pinning him down as the hand guy started to mock Aizawa, whose elbow was already destroyed. "You can erase people's powers. That's irritating, but it's nothing impressive. When faced with true power, you might as well be a quirkless child," he mocked, as the creature kept Aizawa pinned down, who cried out in pain. "What do you think of him, Eraserhead? He's the bioengineered anti-symbol of peace, but you can call him Namu." The students watching nearby gasped as Aizawa was beaten by the Namu, while Vlad was still pinned down by several villains. They wanted to step in and help, but they had no prior combat training and wouldn't last 10 seconds against the villains or this Namu. Nearby, Olympius eyed the Namu with an interested look in his eyes. Conjuring up a dagger, he was prepared to throw the weapon when the portal villain appeared beside the hand villain. "Tamura Shigaraki," the portal villain addressed. "Kurogiri, did you manage to kill 13? The now named Tamura Shigaraki asked. "The rescue hero is out of commission. But there were students I was unable to disperse, and only one of them got outside of the facility. In addition, it appears that something managed to enter the facility, but it wasn't one of the teachers, so I suspect it's an ally of the Power Rangers," Kurogiri reported, much to Shigaraki's annoyance, which caused him to scratch his neck. "Kurogiri, you fool. If you weren't our rap gate, I'd tear apart every last atom in your body." Shigaraki growled in annoyance. "There's no way we can win if dozens of pros show up to stop us, and if the Rangers show up, then it will be even more difficult." He grunted before he finally stopped scratching his neck. "It's game over. Back to the title screen. And I was looking forward to finishing this today. Damn it. Let's go home. But first, let's make sure the symbol of peace is broken." It was at that moment the dagger flew from Olympius's hands and impaled the Namu in its brain, causing it to scream in pain before it flailed its arms around a frenzy, knocking the still-standing villains aside, much to Shigaraki's surprise. "Kurogiri, what's going on?" he demanded. "I don't know. The Namu, it's out of control," Kurogiri answered before the Namu turned its attention towards the hidden students and fired laser beams from its eyes, which exploded and forced the students into the open. "But it appears we have an audience." Shigaraki glared at the students with eyes filled with pure evil that sent another chill down the spine of the students, as the crazed Namu charged towards the students with a bloodlust. Acting on instinct, without even thinking, Izuku flung himself towards the Namu, using the full power of One for All and punched the Namu in the chest. But it didn't even affect the Namu, and he didn't break his arm. "Did you really think a punch like that would do any good? Namu was created to take on All Might. And you think a single punch can take him out? Are you one of All Might's followers?" Shigaraki asked in a mocking tone, just as the Namu knocked Izuku aside and into a large rock. "Izuku/Deku," Connor and Melissa shouted, but the Namu turned its attention towards them. As the creature lunged, a wall of ice appeared in front of it, created by Shoto, who had just arrived, while an explosive punch from Bakugo dazed the creature. The sight of Izuku covered in bruises and small cuts made Kirishima and the eyebrow-less guy, named Tetsutetsu made them gasp in horror. "Midoriya, you bastards are going to pay," Kirishima cursed, just as the Namu punched his way through the wall of ice. "Do you not see the monster of a man in front of us, Kirishima? We can't take that guy on," Tetsutetsu pointed out, but was too late as the Namu was right on top of them. One moment, the students watched in horror as the creature prepared to bring its massive fists down on them. But then suddenly, A massive wind burst through the doors of the Asji, creating a large cloud of dust as footsteps echoed around. I couldn't help but shake the feeling that something had gone wrong when Aizawa, Vlad, and 13 didn't answer my calls. Fortunately, I ran into young Ada, Skolovich, and Bulkmeyer along the way. They told me of the villainy at work here. Came the voice of the world's greatest hero, who removed his tie from his blazer. I can't believe all this went down while I was resting. I hate to think of how frightened these children must be, and how hard my colleagues had to fight in order to protect them. The only thing I can do now is reassure them that things will be okay. That's my duty as the symbol of peace. When All Might's eyes turned to the unconscious and battered Aizawa, Vlad, and Izuku, he felt a tidal wave of anger flowing through his body, ripping his blazer off before he turned back to Shigaraki, Kirigiri, and the Namu. "Have no fear, students, because I am here," he declared. "All Might," the students exclaimed all at once. "So, that is the symbol of peace? Quite an impressive-looking human. I wonder what his quirk is," Olympius thought to himself as he watched from the cliff. He wasn't the only one for above the Asji, watching through a broken section of the roof. Korag watched the ongoing events unfold, kneeling down and looking at All Might. "It appears that I might have found a worthy opponent," the Wolf Knight mused to himself. The villains that were still standing were either terrified of All Might's presence or eager to take on the #1 hero, only to be defeated by All Might's speed, while also grabbing Vlad and Aizawa, the later of whom was barely conscious, who he put down in front of the students. "Everyone back to the entrance. Take Aizawa and Vlad with you. Aizawa doesn't have much time left. I'll deal with these villains," All Might instructed. All Might. When Izuku punched that Namu thing, it didn't do a thing. Something or someone made that thing go berserk. "It's not a living thing. It's a monster. You need our help," TJ shouted. "I won't let you students get involved with this fight. These villains won't hesitate to kill you," All Might countered. "All Might," Connor said. "It's our duty as Power Rangers to protect the world, and running away is out of the question. You never trained to handle monsters, and that thing is far from a normal villain than anything we've ever seen. Our classmates were attacked and almost killed because of these villains and the monsters that snuck in with them, and you need our help," he said with reason, remembering that the news reports from this morning reported that All Might had resolved several criminal acts earlier, and since he knew about All Might's secret, he knew the pro-hero didn't have much time left. All Might let out a chuckle before he spoke again. "Well said, young Grayson. In fact, I would be honored if you and your fellow Rangers would join me in battle," All Might said. Connor nodded his head, then looked back to the other Rangers who all nodded in agreement, and then stood alongside All Might. "Who do you think you are? The Power Rangers? You've got no powers and can easily be crushed like bugs," Shigaraki mocked. "We may not have quirks, but we've got power," Melissa shouted. "And we're about to show you that even quirk-less heroes can go beyond, plus ultra," Anthony added. "You hurt our friends, so we owe you some payback," TJ said with a smirk. "And fighting alongside All Might. Well, we do owe him for helping us in Hasu," Lena said. Raising his mofer up, Connor led his fellow Rangers as they readied themselves for battle. "Lightspeed rescue," they all shouted. Quagogo V opening. Flipping open their morphers, the Rangers held out their hands as the radical vortex-shaped shields appeared around them, then lowered their arms as the shields came towards them, covering their bodies in their respective Ranger suits. Their helmets followed suit and appeared on their heads as the now morphed Rangers stood by All Might's side. "Red Ranger, rescue ready," Connor shouted, snapping to attention, saluted, then struck a fighting pose. "Blue Ranger, rescue ready," TJ shouted, snapping to attention, saluted, then struck a fighting pose. "Green Ranger, rescue ready," Anthony shouted, snapping to attention, saluted, then struck a fighting pose. "Yellow Ranger, rescue ready," Lena shouted, snapping to attention, saluted, then struck a fighting pose. Pink Ranger, rescue ready, Melissa shouted, snapping to attention, saluted, then struck a fighting pose. All Might, symbol of peace, rescue ready, All Might shouted with a salute. People's lives are Earth's future, Connor began, holding his open hand up in front of himself, then clenched his fist. Blazing rescue spirits, TJ continued, moving his to his side, then clenched his own fist as well. Saving people with smiles on their faces, All Might added before the Rangers snapped at attention. Power Rangers, Anthony shouted. All Might shouted. Lightspeed, Lena shouted. Rescue, Melissa finished, as 5 colorful explosions erupted from behind the 6 heroes who stood ready to fight. End music. The Namu, still in a rage, charged towards the 6 heroes, but All Might was the first to act with a Carolina smash. But the attack didn't faze the Namu. Guess my attacks aren't phasing you at all, so let's try this. All Might growled, dropping the Namu head first with a suplex. But Kurogiri used his quirk to save the Namu, which in turn gave the Namu the chance to grab All Might's wound, causing the symbol of peace to groan in pain. Just what kind of villain are you? That is Namu, a bioengineered villain created to kill you, Shigaraki shouted. He has shock absorption, so the only way for you to hurt him is to slowly gouge out his flesh. Of course, I don't think he'll sit back and let you do that. You've finally met your match. Not while we're here, TJ shouted as the Rangers rushed to assist All Might, only to be stopped by the appearance of multiple batlings, quantrons, and putties. Where did they come from? But not one of the Rangers had the answer. Allow us to contend with these creatures, came the voice of Villamax as he and Loyax leapt over the Rangers with their swords drawn, slashing down several of the foot soldiers. Go and help All Might, Rangers. We'll take care of them, Villamax advised. We'll answer any questions you have when this is over, Loyax added, raising his sword to block a Q blade before he cut down the Quantron that attacked him. Thanks, Melissa said as the Rangers ran past the 2 former villains to assist All Might. As they ran past them, Villamax swung his sword downward on a battling, then quickly brought it upward as he kicked away a putty that was trying to attack him from behind. Turning around, he charged towards the putty and several others, slashing them all at once. These creatures are not worthy of my Vorpal strike, Villamax scoffed. Loyax swung his blade, cutting down foe after foe without any remorse. Fighting against these creatures, it reminds me of my days as a young warrior of good, he reminisced, calling on his wrecking ball, which he batted with his sword towards multiple batlings, knocking them down. I will not be tempted by evil ever again, he added, kicking away a Quantron. At the same moment, the Namu continued to pummel All Might, constantly going for his weak spot, while Kurogiri, Shigaraki, and Olympius watched the ongoing fight. Shigaraki felt a sort of pride as he watched the Namu duke it out with the symbol of peace, wholeheartedly believing that All Might would die here, despite the Namu no longer being under his control. Olympius, on the other hand, found the Namu to be an interesting creature, as it contained multiple quirks. Similar to what he sensed in the boy known as Shoto, he needed to know more about these creatures, and if the so-called League of Villains was able to get a hand on one of them, he might be able to get his hands on one as well, if he could deceive these foolish humans. As the Namu continued to attack All Might, the creature prepared to launch a powerful punch at All Might, only for the creature's arms to become ensnared by red rope, thrown by Connor, while the other 4 Rangers fired their blasters at the monster. The Namu flinched, but the blast didn't faze it as it let out an ear-piercing screech, pulling on its arm that sent Connor flying through the air, right in front of the Namu, which then prepared to bring its foot down on him. But Connor rolled out of the way just in time. Lena and Anthony then charged in, swinging their batons at the Namu, hitting it in the chest, followed by Melissa and TJ, who fired their blasters at the Namu's exposed brain, hitting it and caused it excruciating pain before more rope of different colors was thrown by the other rangers, wrapping around the creature's arms and legs as Connor rushed in. Fired his blaster at the Namu, then leapt through the air with his blaster in baton mode and thrusted it into the Namu's chest, while Connor backflipped away from the creature, but not fast enough as the Namu tried to backhand Connor. A gust of wind blew past the Namu as All Might appeared in front of the monster and delivered a powerful uppercut to the creature's head, knocking it into the air, then followed it by a flying double kick that slammed the monster into the ground so hard it left a crater, but the Namu just shrugged off the attack and got back to its feet. "So, you protected the Red Ranger," Shigaraki observed. "I'm surprised at you, All Might. But then again, you are a government hero, always relying on violence." "Well, you know what, All Might? That pisses me off. Why do people get to decide that some violent acts are heroic, while others are villainous? Casting judgment as to what's good and what's evil. You think you're the symbol of peace? You're just another government-sponsored instrument of violence. And violence always breeds more violence. I'll make sure the world understands that when you're dead." He ranted. "Criminals like you always try to make your actions sound noble," countered All Might, who wiped a trickle of blood from his lips while his white shirt was ripped. "But admit it, you're only doing this because you like it. Isn't that right? Well, I'll make sure you pay for your actions." All Might held out his arms as leaping off from his shoulders were the Rangers, with their rescue blasters in baton mode, and held out as each of them struck the Namu in the chest. "Your creature might have shock absorption, but that means there's a limit to the amount of damage it can take," Connor shouted, then raised his arm to his helmet. "Rescue bird." Shooting out of the rescue bay, the rescue bird fell into the hands of the Rangers, who readied themselves to fire the Unilaser as All Might rushed in and started to pummel the Namu with a series of rapid punches like a machine gun. "So, you were made to fight me, big guy? If you can withstand me at 100%, then I'll have to surpass that limit so your suffering can finally end." All Might bellowed as the Rangers waited, while he continued to pummel the Namu. "A real hero will always find a way for justice to be served." A final punch from All Might slammed into the Namu's gut before the number one hero leapt back, giving the Rangers a clear shot. "Calamity Breaker," Connor shouted as he pulled the trigger, sending a blast so powerful towards the Namu that it couldn't recover from All Might's blows, groaned, then fell face forward to the ground before it exploded into numerous pieces, much to the dismay of Shigaraki and Kurogiri. "So much for your Namu," TJ said. "But how? How could you destroy my Namu?" Shigaraki demanded, like he was throwing a tantrum. "Easy. All Might punched it so fast, it couldn't have time to regenerate, allowing us to put it down," Anthony answered. "Damn you, Rangers," Shigaraki cursed, just as Card flew through the air and embedded itself into one of the pieces of the destroyed Namu. "Mighty Namu, you're not done. Rise up and fight until you've won," chanted Jixer as pieces of the destroyed Namu turned into hundreds of small bats, which flew up into the air as they formed the Namu, which was now taller, and crashed through the roof of the USJ, which was seen by everyone in and out of the building. "Namu, destroy the city," Jinxer ordered before he disappeared. The Namu slowly walked towards the city, while the Rangers could only watch. Without the Lightspeed Megazord, there was nothing they could do to stop it, or so they thought as Mondo's voice came over the Morpher's communicator. "Rangers, call the rail rescues." "But you said the rescue Zords are still damaged," Lena exclaimed. "They are. But you have another set of Zords. Trust me," Mondo assured. The Rangers looked at each other confused before they ran out of the OSJ, past the arriving teachers, and towards the city. "Rail rescues, on track," Connor called out as they ran. "Start Baukinger theme." Emerging from the ocean, the rescue bay and its tracks rose to the surface as the bay opened up, and the massive trains launched towards the city as the Namu continued to wreak havoc among the city, as bystanders ran for panic. Brakes screeching loudly, The rail rescues came to a stop and then opened up to reveal the Zords. One was a large red dump truck, another was a black Formula One race car, while the third was a blue hovercraft, the fourth a yellow bulldozer, and the fifth was a pink submarine. Use the drive Zords, you'll need the firepower in the battles to come, Mondo instructed. Let's do it, Connor said and ran towards the Zords, sitting down in the cockpit of the dump truck, while Anthony took control of the race car, TJ the hovercraft, Lena the bulldozer, and Melissa the submarine. Dump driver, go. Gyro driver, go. Speed driver, go. Dozer driver, go. Sub driver, go. All 5 drive Zords rolled or lifted out of the rail rescues and towards the Namu, which turned to face the Zords. Let's show this guy some real power, Connor shouted, gunning the dump driver towards the Namu, spun it around before using the claws of the Zord to push the Namu down the ground. Anthony revved up the speed driver and launched himself off a damaged building, then fired his Zord's missiles from the front bumpers that slammed into the Namu, followed by a barrage of lasers from the gyro, dozer, and sub-drivers that hit the Namu and forced it back. What do you guys say we bring them together? Lena suggested. Sounds like a plan to me. Melissa agreed and pressed a button on her control panel. Initiating Megazord formation. The drive Zords moved in formation with the dozer and sub-drivers drove alongside the dump driver, shifting into a pair of arms, then attached to the dump driver as its bucket became a pair of legs and a torso. The speed driver then drove up the back of the 3 Zords like a ramp, locked in place, and then formed the chest as a head emerged from the dump driver, while the rest of the Megazord stood upright. Finally, the gyro driver separated into 2 pieces, forming the helmet and spine of the mighty DriveMax Megazord, as the Rangers all sat in the cockpit. DriveMax Megazord, transformation complete, they all shouted. End theme. The large Namu growled as it glared at the DriveMax Megazord, before charging towards the machine with its fists, and swung them at the Megazord, doing little damage as the Rangers countered the Namu's attacks, caught another swing, then kicked it away. Damn, this thing is one impressive Megazord. Too bad we don't have any ranged weapons, Connor said, impressively. Again, the Namu growled as it charged towards the Megazord, and came in with a kick. But the Rangers countered with a kick of their own. The pistons in the legs came to life as the Megazord kicked the Namu hard. But to the surprise of the Rangers, the Namu was actually hurt. Why isn't it using its quirk? Melissa asked. I don't know. Maybe when it grew, the quirks it had were lost? Anthony guessed. I'm not so sure. Maybe the quirks were nullified when it grew, TJ suggested. That can't be it, Lena said. Their talk distracted them as the Namu charged them once more and struck a blow at the Megazord's chest, causing brief damage, but the DriveMax still stood tall and strong. Doesn't matter what happened to its quirks, Doc's got all the data he needs on this monster, so we need to finish this now, Connor said to the others, who agreed. Let's give it double the trouble. Lightspeed Megazord Saber, Drive Saber, power up. Materializing into both of the Megazord's hands, the Lightspeed Megazord Saber and the Saber of the DriveMax, as the Namu glared at the Megazord. Swords, invoke the light, Connor shouted as the Megazord rotated its sabers in both directions as a circle of flames appeared behind it and empowered the blades. Double victory prominence. The Rangers shouted and pushed their controls forward as the DriveMax ran towards the Namu with both blades behind the back of the Megazord and slashed at the monster with double the power across the chest. The Namu groaned for a few moments before it fell over and exploded as the Megazord glanced to the side. Mission complete, the Rangers announced as the Megazord stood victorious. Unknown bar. The Namu's destruction was caught by several news stations that aired the fight all across the country, even to a TV in an old bar where an injured Shigaraki and Kurogiri had fled to when the rest of the UA staff arrived. Impossible. That Namu had 2 quirks to take on All Might. Yet it was destroyed by a bunch of teenagers with an outdated relic of the past. All that research and funding lost. An angry voice came over the radio. Well, it's not my fault, Doctor, Shigaraki spat. We didn't know the Power Rangers would actually be at the USJ, or that they had another Megazord, let alone a relic made from construction vehicles. If anyone's to blame, it's your fault, Doctor, considering that you didn't consider of the Namu going berserk. He continued. Calm yourself, Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogiri advised. Thankfully, we operated under that League of Villains name, so our cover is still intact. But I am more concerned about those monsters that joined in our assault. We didn't summon them, and I know of no villains with such an appearance. Then why don't I make things easier for you all and come clean? Came Olympias's voice as he appeared in the bar with Korag and Darkonda by his side, the first of whom was disgusted by the Namu. I am Olympias, son of Queen Banshira, queen of all demons. You're the bastard that had to ruin my fun, Shigaraki snarled, ready to use his quirk to turn the demon into dust. I should kill you right here and now. Why do that when I have an offer for you, Kurogiri, the doctor, and your master? An offer that you can't afford to pass up. Olympias pointed out. Then by all means, Prince Olympias, let us hear this offer. An old-sounding voice came from another TV. If this offer is related to the Power Rangers, then it is only fitting that I meet you. Face. A portal soon opened up, courtesy of Kurogiri, and out from the portal, wearing a navy blue suit, skull-like gas mask with various tubes that connected to a collar-like life support system, was Shigaraki's master. To face, I am all for one.